Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories Podcast, LDS Discussions Edition. It is May 1st, 2024, and today we are continuing our amazing Mormon Church Truth Claims series called LDS Discussions, and we're going to be doing at least a two-parter on the 8 witnesses to the Book of Mormon. For now, the working title of this episode is What Did the 8 Witnesses Actually See? We're going to be finalizing what the actual titles are for these 2 episodes after we record them. But we know we've got enough slides for at least 2 episodes. For those who don't know, we're talking about the 8 witnesses to the Book of Mormon, following an episode or 2 on the 3 witnesses to the Book of Mormon. And this whole LDS discussion series is a 50-plus episode series now that we've recorded over a year or 2 based on the amazing work of Mike from the LDSdiscussions.com website, where Mike did a meticulous job of reviewing Mormon Church Truth Claims. And we've covered so many great things. Y'all love it. Mike, at some point, needed to take a break from original research. And so we've brought Julia Sanders on to continue some of that research as well. And with that, we are wanting to remind everyone that you can consume the LDS discussion series wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. You can view it on video on Spotify, but also there is a YouTube playlist where you can watch them all in succession. We want to remind you that this series is enjoyed best if you start from the beginning and then watch them all in sequence, because we will be referring to past episodes. But, we welcome you no matter where you are. And we know that so many of you love this series. So without any further ado, I'm going to invite back Julia Sanders, who is the researcher and the primary guide for today's episode. Hey, Julia.
Hi.
How was Scotland?
It was so good. I got engaged.
What?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
It's to America.
Yeah, my old BYU Idaho roommate.
Wow. Congratulations.
Congrats. Yeah. We're excited for that. And thanks for planning this episode.
Yeah.
We also have Mike, the granddaddy, the godfather, LDS Discussions. Hey, Mike.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here, and it's good that Julia's doing all the work. It's so easy.
And last but not least, we have the amazing, the OK Nemo from Nemo the Mormon. That's an inside.
John's just salty that he didn't get to hang out with me and Julia in Oxford the other week.
And RFM.
And I hung out with her. John's he's got FOMO. And Mike told me that he had to take a break from me. He didn't say it was the research. He said he couldn't bear to work with me, so he had to take a break.
Mike's always had it in for you, Nemo. He's never really hidden that. So
no,
yeah, it's like Nemo's like nails on the chalkboard to me.
I'm surprised we've left
records
like the Beatles.
Yeah, we are. The behind the scenes footage is just crazy.
Nemo's the Yoko Ono of our group, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Well, today we've got a lot to cover. And Julia, should we dive right in?
Yeah.
So do you want to give, just for those, your Book of Mormon had 3 witnesses and then 8 witnesses, any super quick context that we want to share, or is that just going to be what we
kind of talk about the context in it?
Okay.
So the last one we talked about the 3 witnesses and how there was inconsistencies with those witnesses. So now we're covering the 8.
All right. Anything else anyone wants to say before we dive in, or everyone good?
I'll add just in the last episode, I said the 3 witnesses don't matter. I still believe that from a historical standpoint. They matter because of how the church props it up as a faith-affirming thing. But I will say, I think the 8 witnesses are more important than the 3 witnesses, which is something I wouldn't have said until I kind of went through this recently. So I actually think this episode is more insightful into how Joseph Smith is doing things than the 3 witnesses. And I'll explain that as we go, but I just want to throw that out at the beginning because I actually do find this to be better than the 3 witnesses from kind of getting a glimpse into how Joseph Smith does things. And to that note, I'll say that part of what I'm thinking is two of the favorite overview topics from the website that we did episodes for are the 116 pages and the Transfiguration of Brigham Young. And I felt like both of those topics give you an insight into church history that you can't get from a lot of the more covered topics. And I feel like this one kind of falls into that same group. So I've just given that as a little tease.
Wow, that's high praise. That's high praise from Mike, everybody. I don't think it gets better than that, really.
And I just want to say before we start that today's episode is brought to you by chocolate-covered peanuts. And if you want to eat the same snacks that I'm eating while you enjoy this episode, go get yourself some chocolate-covered peanuts, unless you're allergic, in which case, please don't do that.
Well, without any further ado, Julia, where do we begin?
Yeah, so I just want to give a little bit of background. So as we discussed previously, the three witnesses are referenced 4 times in the Book of Mormon, and that's Ether, 2nd Nephi, in a couple of in chapter 11, 27, and then another time in 27. The only reference in the Book of Mormon to the 8 witnesses comes from 2nd Nephi 27, verses 12 through 13. That reads, "The eyes of none shall behold it, save it be that 3 witnesses shall behold it by the power of God, besides him to whom the book shall be delivered. And they shall testify to the truth of the book and the things therein." And here's the reference. "And there is none other which shall view it, save it be a few, according to the will of God, to bear testimony of his word unto the children of men." Okay, so what's interesting is that the 3 Nephites, or the 3 witnesses was referenced in the Book of Mormon, but the only reference is "save it be a few." Like, that's the only time the 8 witnesses are discussed. And so it seems like an afterthought to me, rather than, like, if you think of the Book of Mormon as a 19th century text, Joseph Smith is writing it, and it seems like the 8 witnesses ideas came later.
Yeah, I'm not going to take seriously anything that starts to say only certain people get to see X, Y, and Z, because John 1:18 is "No man has seen God at any time, the only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him." And then you've got the Book of Mormon full of people that see God or see the finger of God, or Joseph Smith sees God directly. So it's like, I'm not taking it too seriously about who gets to see God and who doesn't, and declarations that only certain people are going to get to see plates. And
and
that's where my brain went.
But clearly there aren't the scriptural specific predictions of a number of people, that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Nowhere does it say 8 people shall see it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so the summary of the 8 witnesses. In volume 1, the summary of the story of the 8 witnesses is summarized in this manner. So this is from the 7 volumes. "Soon after these things had transpired, the following additional testimony was obtained." And then they go on to like copy and paste the testimony of the 8 witnesses. "B.H. Roberts notes that Lucy Mack Smith's history gives further details." So I just think that's interesting, is that in all these 7 volumes, that's the only reference that they really give. That's the only background that they give. And so I just thought that was really interesting. Whereas with the 3 witnesses, we have all the story of them going to the woods and things like that. And this is all we have for the 8 witnesses.
Wow. That's it?
Yeah, as far as the volume, the history of the church, the 7 volumes. So
Huh. That's almost nothing. Wow.
I know. So if you want to learn more, kind of going to Lucy is what B.H. Roberts is saying to do. And then, of course, these witnesses that we're going to talk about, the other testimonies, kind of give a little bit more detail. But I just thought that was really interesting that here we're writing the whole history of the church, and that's all that they give. So I guess it wasn't as important as Mike thinks that they are.
to them writing at the time.
Yeah.
Which may bolster Mike's point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna to say that it's not that I think they're important in terms of history. I think that this gives us a better glimpse into what Joseph Smith is doing. So that's why I think it's more important as far as, like, I guess for the point of the whole stuff on the website and in these episodes, it was like putting that puzzle back together and trying to see where the pieces fit. And all of these clues give us that. The 116 pages episode, I think personally, is one of the best episodes, one of the best overviews on the website, because it gives you insights into how Joseph Smith reacts when he loses control of a situation. It gives you insights into how he's creating the Book of Mormon, because we know that the order of dictation. So you could see all of those clues at the beginning of the book, that the middle of the book doesn't know, all of that stuff. And this, to me, follows a little bit of similar pattern in terms of the way that these 8 witnesses, the story rolls out. It shows you where Joseph Smith is insecure. It shows you where he's confident. And I think that gives us a little bit more insight. Whereas the 3 witnesses is more like, yeah, we went out, we saw a vision. I don't believe, as we talked about in the last episode, that the stories are very inconsistent. And there are very few believing Mormons that if they heard these stories from another religion would say, oh yeah, that religion is true. They'd say these guys are making it up. And I would argue this one with the 8 is a lot less credible in terms of like, that kind of visionary stuff, but it also gives you a better window into what Joseph's doing. So I'm rambling a bit, but I want to just clarify the reason I think it's more important is to kind of like how the sausage is made more than anything else.
Well, you're the Godfather, Mike, so we want your candid views here.
So is what you're saying essentially that if we're looking at the 3 and 8 witnesses as Joseph's attempts to increase the credibility of his claims, then the 8 witnesses is a lot less thorough an attempt than the 3?
Yeah,
and opens him up to more
or less credible, less credible.
Yeah,
Mike?
less credible, perhaps.
Yeah.
Is a way of putting that.
All right, Julia. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was to say I might be off a little bit here, but the history of the church was written in what 1837, 1838, right, somewhere in there. And at that point, the 3 witnesses were all run out of town, right? Because that was one of the things we talked about is how they weren't there to correct any of the stuff in the history. So Joseph Smith could write their history for them. We talked about that with how he made all those changes to the Charles Anson story with Martin Harris, right? I think with the 8 witnesses, there are some of them that are still there at the time. Obviously, Hiram Smith is. I don't know about the others. So I also wonder if that's part of the reason Joseph Smith isn't going to take any liberties there, because there are people in the church at the time that maybe if they saw that, they could say, yeah, that's not how it went down. Whereas with the 3 witnesses, there's no one there to correct them.
Got it.
Okay. That's a good point. Yeah.
All right. What's next, Julia?
Okay. So B.H. Roberts, so he explains further, and this is the same volume 1. He explains the differences between the 3 and 8 witnesses. Mike, do you actually want to read this one? Because I think this goes along with what you were saying.
Yeah, so this is from B.H. Roberts in Volume 1 of the History of the Church. He says, the difference between the testimony given the 3 witnesses and that given to the 8 is that the former was attended by a splendid display of glory and power of God and the ministration of an angel, while the latter was attended by no such display, but was a plain, matter-of-fact exhibition of the plates by the prophet to his friends. And I want you all to remember that last sentence, because that is, to me, gives the game away. And we'll go through that as we go through this episode. But that sentence right there tells you why this is such a big problem as we go through these different accounts.
Mm-hmm. So no angel, is that what it's saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike, you're saying that the separating it from the supernatural angel coming, showing you these things and making it a matter of fact, whatever B.H. Roberts is saying, that's more credible. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying it's actually more problematic in a way. And so because we're being told by the church that this one is a physical event, it's like saying to you, Julia, there is a mug on your table that if you walk in, you can see. And if you call your neighbor over, they could come in and see. There's no need for a spiritual being to bring that mug down to you, right? Because of that, it shows you how little confidence Joseph Smith has in the credibility of these plates, because if it's truly a matter-of-fact visit, you would bring the local reporters, you'd bring the governor, you'd bring like a local mayor, all these people, all the people that have said, Joseph Smith, you're a con man, he'd be like, let's check it, let's go. And yeah, as we'll see, he doesn't do that because he knows full well that anyone who is not part of that magic worldview would walk in there and be like, yeah, at most, this is a prop set of plates that can't pass physical inspection. So because of the church wanting this to be such a physical experience, to me, it shows you even more, based on how Joseph Smith acts with them, that he knows that they aren't what he claims them to be.
Because it leaves it open to the laws of physical evidence then. Because it's a physical event.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go through all of it now because we got the whole episode to go through, but like it's one of those things where as someone taking them, I'm thinking of myself taking the discussions, and if I had the thought of like actually looking at the names on the 8 witnesses and going, why in the world, if this is a physical experience, that they bring someone that wasn't part of the 2 families, but you don't think about it because you're not thinking in that mindset. But if you think about it critically, you're like, this makes 0 sense. And it actually shows you Joseph Smith knows full well, just like replicating the 116 pages, he knew he could not do it because it was an oral dictation. He knows full well if he brings people in who aren't already trying to help Joseph Smith in what he's doing, they're going to look at it and be like, yeah, you made it up. I mean, it's really easy.
Well, and I think I referenced this in the last episode, and we will talk about it later. But James Strang does what you just said. So James Strang finds these Vori plates, and he has his 4 witnesses with him to help him dig it up, and they find it. But then he carries it with him, and he shows everybody these little plates. But Joseph Smith doesn't do that. He never shows the plates to just anybody. It's these very specific people.
Interesting.
Yep. There's a reason. I mean,
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay, so going over the testimony of the 8 witnesses, Nemo, do you want to just go ahead and run through that and read it?
Yep. Be it known unto all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people unto whom this work shall come, that Joseph Smith Jr., the translator of this work, has shown unto us the plates, of which hath been spoken, which have the appearance of gold, and as many of the leaves as the said Smith has translated, we did handle with our hands. And we also saw the engravings thereon, all of which has the appearance of ancient work and of curious workmanship. And this we bear record with words of soberness, that the said Smith has shown unto us, for we have seen and hefted, and know of a surety that the said Smith has got the plates, of which he has spoken. And we give our names unto the world, to witness unto the world that which we have seen, and we lie not, God bearing witness of it. Christian Whitmer, Jacob Whitmer, Peter Whitmer Jr., John Whitmer, Hiram Page, Joseph Smith Sr., Hiram Smith, Samuel H. Smith.
Now, really quickly, I know you're going to be covering this, but 4 Whitmers that, that they're all brothers to David, I'm assuming, or his dad. And then,
Hiram Page is the brother-in-law.
Guy.
Yeah.
And he's also sort of a Whitmer. And I know, and then
right.
Joseph Smith's dad, his brother, 2 of his brothers. Okay. So it's Smiths and Whitmers, basically.
It's just Smiths and Whitmers, yeah.
Okay. All right. I know you're going to talk about that, but I just want to do my own analysis.
Right.
And they're saying they saw it, hefted it, and with their own hands. So that's almost like pre-addressing this later concern about spiritual eyes. They're trying to say this was physical, not visionary, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the selling point of the 8 witnesses isn't that just there's now numerically more people that seen it. It's that they've seen it in a way that the 3 witnesses didn't even see it. They've handled it. They've interacted with it physically.
Okay. Now that we've probably stolen your thunder completely.
Oh, no, that's really fine.
What's next?
But that's really good. So yeah, just handling with their hands that has the appearance of gold. So everyone's seeing gold. And the word hefted is interesting to me, and we'll cover that later, because hefted just means to carry. It's the same language that William uses. Anyway, so just wanted to just give everybody what that is up front, and then we'll go and talk about it.
It invokes a certain sense of heaviness, I would say.
True, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so so about the statements. In both of the witness statements, there was no date given or time of day or location for the event. Each of the witnesses signed an already written statement. Originally, as you can see, the witness statements were published at the end of the book, whereas today they are published at the beginning. So those are just things to note.
And that's similar to the 3 witnesses for those who didn't watch that episode. Okay.
Yeah. And since its original publication in 1830, the witness statements have been edited. It originally said Joseph Smith Jr., the author and proprietor of this work, and then 8 years later in 1837, it was changed to read Joseph Smith Jr., the translator of this work.
Ooh, do we know the history of what led to that change?
I don't know exactly what led to that change, but he was changing the Book of Mormon text during this time.
Yeah.
And this was around the Kirtland Safety Society Bank, although I think that might have been the year later. But so people are leaving. So
yeah. Sorry, 1837 is the second edition of the Book of Mormon, and it's where it changes things from the Mother of God to the Mother of the Son of God and things like that.
Changing theology.
Joseph Smith's view of theology and worldview changes during that time, and then he will go on to do the 1838 account of the first vision the next year, which then has 2 personages appearing to him rather than just one. So this is it changed at the same time as a lot of Joseph's theology was also changing.
Yeah.
I think the apologetic.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, I think the apologetic response there is that for Joseph Smith to get the copyright for the Book of Mormon, he had to be listed as the author. So the argument there is, and I don't know if this bears weight, but when I read it, I was like, yeah, it's fine. They basically say that Joseph Smith had to call himself the author in order to get protection for that text, because otherwise you can't write God's the author in a copyright application. They'd be like, yeah, you can't get that. So I think that's the response. Nemo, jump in.
Can I ask a question that would challenge that, but I don't know the answer to it, and this is a good one for people to put in the comments and let us know, is Muslims believe the Quran in Arabic to be the literal word of God. So God is the author, not the Prophet Muhammad, not even the angel Gabriel. It's God is the author. So what have Muslims done? What is the copyright status of the Quran in Arabic? That's my question to the audience.
Yeah.
That's a
Well, I
great
mean,
question.
in all fairness, like I could publish a Bible. No one's gonna sue me on behalf of God. But I do think with the Book of Mormon, because it was so unique to Joseph Smith, he wanted to protect it so that the thing that he thought he was going to be able to sell, and we have those accounts where Martin Harris was really disappointed in how poorly it sold, and they had to lower the price. So there is that element of Joseph Smith wanting to protect his work, which of course I can believe it's his work. And so yeah, I bet you the Quran does. I bet you could publish a Quran and no one's going to come after you. But again, there's not one person today trying to profit off of it. So
Interesting.
you could spell profit there with an F or a PH. It kind of works both ways. So.
Okay. All right. That's interesting, those changes. I'll just say we probably ought to do a LDS discussions episode on the Kirtland hubbub, that dust up that was 3738. I know we've covered Kirtland Bank, right? But I mean, maybe not. Like just that whole Grant Palmer Insider's View kind of stuff. Julie, I know I sent you that book, but we should all it seems like we should do an episode on what happened in Kirtland in 37 and 38 that led to all these changes.
I'll take a free book.
Okay. All right. We'll send me my book.
Are you talking about the changes in theology?
Just
because we covered that a lot.
Like that was a really important.
But 37, 38 were important years for a lot of changes in the church, I think is what John's saying, right?
But I don't think that the Kirtland Safety Society thing had anything to do with Joseph Smith changing the idea of the Godhead, because that was coming. I mean, we went through that. That was an evolution.
But that did cause a lot of the Whitmers to leave the church, I guess is what I was getting at.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think a lot of people at the time were also going, why is Joseph Smith changing these really basic concepts about the priesthood, about the Godhead? Mm-hmm. And it's because he was still figuring it out, which again, as we've already covered, so watch those episodes on the first vision and the priesthood restoration. It shouldn't be happening if Joseph is getting personal visitations, which is kind of the same almost line of thought with what we're going to see here, where it's like if he could see these plates, there's a lot of problems with the story if they're really on a table as we're being told. So
Isn't the testimony of the three witnesses, doesn't that one kind of talk about a Trinitarian type God? Am I mistaken in that?
I think we were talking about that. Yeah, like a modal. Book of Mormon's modalist, and I know it's kind of like it's similar to Trinitarian view, but yeah, I mean, at the time of these witness statements, they are 100%.
Yeah, I just wonder why he didn't edit those ones. I just wonder why he didn't edit that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the Book of Mormon. I think he probably didn't get it right. I think because that's one of the arguments for apologists. Like, well, if he was truly changing the Godhead, he would have made more changes. It's like, well, it just depends on how thorough he was. I mean, at the time, he's also, as we talked about, embroiled in all sorts of stuff. It's not like he was sitting there going through the Book of Mormon. He didn't even talk about it in his
right. His
sermons and stuff. So it's just, I don't know. I guess all of those things to me are tells, but I guess you can also go to that point that the apologists go, why didn't you change this then? If you think that's what he's doing, and we covered that a bit because it's, it gets silly to basically say, well, yeah, he made those changes, but since he didn't change this, it doesn't matter. It's like, no, it still matters. It's still pretty obvious what he's doing, especially in context of everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I only mentioned it because I think it was Marlon Jensen that said Kirtland has been the biggest apostasy in the history of the church. And so clearly a lot of stuff happened to lead to that apostasy. Maybe that would be a good episode, the Kirtland apostasy.
Yeah, no, it would be.
Factors led to it. Okay. All right. We'll put that down.
Yeah. Okay. So like John referenced, almost all of them, with the exception of Martin Harris, all of the witnesses were related to the Whitmers or the Smiths. So you have Oliver Cowdery, who was married to Elizabeth Ann Whitmer, and you have David Whitmer, Christian, Jacob, Peter Whitmer, John Whitmer. Hiram Page was married to Catherine Whitmer. And then you have Joseph Smith Sr., Hiram Smith, and Samuel Smith. And
tell us why that matters, Julia.
I guess it's just interesting to me because, like, we talked about the background of the people before, where the Whitmers, the Smiths, and Martin Harris, they were all in this magic worldview mindset. They all believed in seer stones, divining rods. Joseph Smith's family were treasure diggers. Martin Harris, like, he believed in some really kooky things. Like, he thought he was talking to Jesus, who was in the form of a deer. He thought he had a devil sitting on his chest at one point. Like, everyone's just in this magic worldview. So having them all be witnesses is kind of problematic to me because they all come from this same stock.
Yeah, for me, it speaks to the issue of a possible conspiracy and or undue influence, because obviously the more families, the more conspirators, the more people involved, the more the chance at credibility, right?
Yeah.
The more insular the more chance of a conspiracy in one way or another.
Yeah, they
Yeah, I
kept the
guess you could
circle
see it that
tight.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Mark, I love Mark. Well, I think I asked you to include this, the Mark Twain quote. It's one of my
Oh
favorite
yeah.
of all
Right.
time.
And I noticed that not him. So one of the books what is the other book you sent me? The gold plates.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name, but he used Mark Twain as a bolstering of testimony, and I was like, no. This whole Mark Twain wrote a book called Roughing It, and it's just almost satirical. He's just like making fun of the members and the doctrine of the church, but he was using it as credibility. Anyway, but okay. So in his book Roughing It, and this was published in 1871, Mark Twain stated, "And when I am far on the road to conviction, and 8 men, be they grammatical or otherwise, come forward and tell me that they have seen the plates too. And not only seen those plates, but hefted them. I am convinced. I could not feel more satisfied and at rest if the entire Whitmer family had testified."
That's so brilliant. That's so brilliant.
Very cutting.
I mean,
Rather.
he even said, not only seen the plates, but hefted them. And he put hefted in quotes.
Yeah.
Grammatical or otherwise. This guy's savage, man. He's almost British, I think.
Mm-hmm. We all claim him. We claim a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We claim Mark Twain.
Oh, man, that's so good. All right.
Okay, so we talked about this one in the last episode, but of all the signatures are in the handwriting of Oliver Cowdery. And while one could argue that the original 3 and 8 witnesses' statements that was signed was in the original manuscript and not what was in the printer's manuscript, which is pictured here, there is little evidence that such a document existed. So the church says that of the nearly 500 pages placed in the Nauvoo House cornerstone, portions of 232 pages survive. The church now possesses most of those fragments and leaves. Others are in private hands. Their owners graciously allowed those pieces to be photographed and included in this volume, or in the volume and this is me talking because I purchased it, and I tried looking for any kind of original statement, and it doesn't exist. So regardless, having individuals sign a collective statement written by someone else is not as credible as having them make their own personal witness statements. So I just thought that's interesting to point it out. So I don't know where it would be if the church has it or if the church does not have the original signed document, but we just don't know anything about that.
Could I be annoying and British for a moment?
Sure.
Americans love.
Ever anything else? Boom.
Yeah. Americans love the Declaration of Independence, which was a document written and then signed by a bunch of men, right? But not written by each of them. So would an argument be that, that document carries weight and heft, even though it was prepared and then signed by individuals? What's different between that and the witness statements?
Well, I think that's the Declaration's awful. I don't like it.
Wait, the Declaration, just to make sure I understand, that has people's individual signatures, right?
Yeah, but
it has
it's
their
a
individual
collective
signatures.
statement.
But it's a collective statement signed by the individuals, which Julia was making the point. Even if they did all sign it themselves, the fact that it's a collective statement, not individual witness statements, makes it slightly less credible.
I do think that's a little bit different.
I'm being facetious because it's a different type of document.
Right, it's a different type of document. Yeah.
No, I'm just being facetious.
No, and it's also it's also one that was witnessed by a lot of people that could actually right at the time that it happened. Yeah, but it's
me bringing that up doesn't help the church in any way, but just trying to be funny.
Still salty about that revolution, Nemo. Still salty.
Yeah. I'll say, what's the reason that we needed to write that in the first place? I can't remember. Oh yeah,
because you guys didn't like
your
tea.
People.
We didn't like tea.
America, like Thanos, is inevitable.
That's right.
This is what the people come to these episodes for. Right, Julia, sorry. Let you carry on.
Okay, so I just want to point out that the sources that we are about to go over are by no means every source available on this topic. What I am sharing are the sources that do not align with the testimony of the 3 and 8 witnesses. Some of them that I share do align, so that's I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not so I'm just saying that this is not a compilation of all that's available.
Okay.
So don't come after me if I'm missing things.
Yeah, Julia's still in grad school, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so before I get started with what was said about the 8 witnesses, I wanted to add a source that I summarized in the last episode, and I just wanted to give it fully here. So hopefully that's okay. So this source is about Oliver Cowdery denying his testimony of the Book of Mormon. So this source comes from a man named G.J. Keene, and it was signed on April 14th of 1885. And so actually, does someone else want to read this? John, do you want to read his quote?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. We accordingly waited on Mr. Cowdery at his residence in Tiffin, and there learned his connection from him with that order and his full and final renunciation thereof. We then inquired of him if he had any objection to making a public recantation. He replied that he had objections, that in the first place, it could do no good, that he had known several to do so, and they always regretted it. And in the second place, it would have a tendency to draw public attention, invite criticism, and bring him into contempt. But, said he, nevertheless, if the church require it, I will submit to it. But I authorize and desire you and the church to publish and make known my recantation. We did not demand it, but submitted his name to the church, and he was unanimously admitted a member thereof. At that time, he arose and addressed the audience present, admitted his error and implored forgiveness, and said he was sorry and ashamed of his connection with Mormonism. He continued his membership while he resided in Tiffin and became superintendent of the Sabbath school and led an exemplary life while he resided with us. So that's clearly scandalous to Mormons. And I guess Mormons are going to say those are like evangelical anti-Mormons that are making this up. Is that?
I guess. So like with Oliver Cowdery specifically, I know this isn't about, that's for the episode before, but like people say that the three witnesses didn't deny, but it really does seem like Oliver Cowdery did deny, because we have witnesses here from this other church that says, yeah, he was totally willing to deny. We didn't require it because Oliver's giving reasons why he shouldn't, because people will get angry with him. It'll bring negative publicity, like things like that it just would be too much trouble for him. But he said he would be willing to submit. And then even in the Times and Seasons, they published that Oliver Cowdery had denied his testimony of the Book of Mormon. And then there's other things that like his is just really problematic to me to say that none of the witnesses denied. It really does seem like Oliver Cowdery did.
Well, to put this in context for, believing members watching, imagine how you would feel about someone who said, yeah, I'd be willing to deny my testimony of the Book of Mormon. I'd be willing to deny my testimony of Jesus Christ in the atonement. I'd be willing to deny that. Just even them being willing to deny that would have you thinking they never really had it in the first place, and would have you thinking, oh, they were never sincere. Like, be honest with yourself. And then apply the same to Oliver Cowdery.
Yeah.
And so since later he did affirm his testimony, I guess the position would be he got excommunicated. He was salty. He was part of a community that he wanted to be embraced in. He renounced it. But then later, maybe things didn't work out with that community. And he realized, like Richard Bushman, his only real relevance is in his highest, true, most significant relevance is within a Mormon context. And so he rejoined or reaffirmed his statement until he died, because it was in his best interest to do so, not necessarily because he really believed it. Is that the theory?
Yeah, and again, you could flip it the other way, right? You could say, oh, what if John Dehlin said he went back to the church? And then you could say, oh no, then John realized he'd never have the sort of impact and influence as he would have as an ex-Mormon commentator. So then he comes back to the ex-Mormon space, but he's not really an ex-Mormon. He still believes the church is true. That logic swings both ways.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
all right.
Ultimately it's speculation, right? I mean, he rejoins the church in 1848, dies in 1850. So, I mean, I think at that point you're just trying to get into his head. But, obviously we do have multiple documents or multiple accounts that are at least indicating that Oliver is either willing to do it, or in the Times and Season that he did kind of renounce it. And so, you can't throw it all out, I guess, what I would say. I don't know that I buy in totally that he was going around saying he was willing to kind of completely renounce the church. But at the same time, there's something to it. It's just trying to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that then we use to teach those who assume they know why people have left the church and why people's reasons are for not having the testimony that they say they used to have. You don't necessarily know what those reasons are, so maybe be open and nice.
What we know for sure is that as active believing Mormons, all of us who were at one point, we were never, ever, ever informed by the church that there was at least one statement by Oliver Cowdery renouncing, his testimony, we were all told that all three witnesses never what?
Never left the church or never denied their testimony.
Never denied their testimony. So we certainly didn't have informed consent in that.
Right. So whether there's a lot of weight, it doesn't like we can at least be informed about these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about the 8 witnesses. So I want to just kind of outline this. 2 of the 8 witnesses never gave any personal accounts of their witness to the golden plates. And aside from John Whitmer, the rest are limited. So with Christian Whitmer, there's nothing else except for this signed statement. With Jacob Whitmer, there's 2 that come from his kids. Peter Whitmer, there's no other testimony. John Whitmer, actually, I think he was the most interviewed of the 8 witnesses. There are 9 at least. And then Hiram Page, there's one other very limited account, which we'll talk about. And then Joseph Smith Sr., there's only 1. And then Hiram Smith, there was 5, which are also kind of limited. And then Samuel Smith, there are 2. So there's just not a whole lot to go on. I think the 3 witnesses, everyone put the weight on the 3 witnesses and not on the 8, it seems to me.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's good to know. Interesting.
Yeah. And then we kind of talked about this earlier. The Whitmers believed in seer stones. David Whitmer had 2 seer stones, which these are his pictures of his seer stones of his own. And then his brother Jacob Whitmer had his own seer stone. And then, of course, Hiram Page also had a seer stone, which we'll talk about in a couple seconds of what the problems were with Hiram Page's seer stone.
Okay.
But this is just to summarize that this is the magic worldview of these families. So I just wanted to put that out there too.
Got it. That's important context for sure.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's this one. Does someone want to read the story that comes? This story comes, I just pulled off of lostmormonism.com. They posted an article rendition of Hiram Searstone along with this story. Nemo, do you want to read this story?
Absolutely. In September 1830, Hiram Page unearthed a black stone, which he then began using as a seer stone to receive revelations for the Church of Christ. Page looked at the stone. It contained a sentence on paper to befit it. As soon as he wrote one sentence, another sentence came on the stone, until he wrote 16 pages. Oliver Cowdery and the Whitmer family believed that the revelations received from the stone, probably about church government and the location of Zion, were direct communications from God. These revelations challenged Joseph Smith's exclusive authority. Troubled, Smith prayed and received revelation regarding this stone, now canonized as Doctrine and Covenants section 28. Smith declared the stone to be an actual supernatural seer stone that was consecrated for use by the devil, and any revelations received from it were given by the devil. Page was convinced to destroy both the stone and the revelations. The stone was ground to powder and all the revelations burned. The events of this story established the doctrine that only the prophet could receive revelations for the whole church, and that any communication from God out of harmony with the prophets was from the deceiver. From this point onward, Joseph Smith secured his place as the sole revelator for the entire church.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating story.
So
that part about Joseph Smith literally declaring the stone
of the devil
created by the devil. That's almost like the Zelf, where he's like walking along and it's like, oh, there's stones. That's Zelf. Like, do Mormons today really believe that Joseph got inspiration from God, that the stone that his challenger was using at some point in history, spiritual Satan, who doesn't even have a body, is somehow sitting there, somehow holding a stone that he can't even physically hold because he's not a resurrected being, but that somehow he performed some magical incantation on the stone to make it evil, so that then Hiram Page would find it and then produce false testimony like that. But
they have to. They have to, because Joseph Smith had to nuke this. He had to just destroy it entirely, because the problem was not only was Hiram Page running around saying it, but the people that Joseph was relying on for credibility were believing it. So Joseph can't undermine those individuals, otherwise he undermines his own credibility for the Book of Mormon. So he's just got to nuke the stone, because he can't go after Hiram Page, because Hiram Page is one of the witnesses to the Book of Mormon. So all he can do is go after the stone and hope that people don't go, well, hang on, if Hiram was deceived by that, what else could he have been deceived by?
Yeah.
If Joseph says he's been deceived.
Wait, can you put the slide back up? I want to see what year that was. So September of 1830. So there's another story. Yeah. So there's another story in the same year where Joseph's gives the men instructions to go and sell the copyright for the Book of Mormon in Canada. And he looks in his stone and hat, and he says he receives this revelation from the Lord, and the Lord says that he'll prepare a way, that they should get money from it, and then it will help Joseph's family. And then David Whitmer, in his address to all believers in Christ, he says that they failed in their mission, and they come to Joseph and they say, "Why did we fail? You received this revelation from God in God's words." And Joseph's like, "Yeah, that's really confusing." So he gets his stone and hat, and then he receives another revelation saying some revelations are from God and some are from the devil, and this one was from the devil. So Joseph's also saying that his own stone can give him revelations in the words of God that are of the devil.
But that's so problematic, because Joseph Smith was not able to tell that it was from the devil and sent men off to Canada and acting on that revelation.
Right.
So how does anyone trust him from then on? How does anyone trust anything he says? Because you're like, well, do we know if it's from the devil or from God? And it's the same problem now with sometimes prophets speak as men and sometimes prophets speak for God. How are we to know? No one's given us a metric by which we're to know. No one can give us a consistent way in which we can tell whether they're speaking for God or speaking as a man. So we should just really distrust everything they say as just their own words, because we have no way of knowing if it's from God or not. And it's the same with Joseph.
Yeah.
Also,
this story.
This is also giving me David Whitmer vibes, because as we've covered in previous episodes, David Whitmer publishes this pamphlet to all believers in Christ where he's like, all that Melchizedek priestess stuff that Joseph claimed later, that never happened. Like, so we're supposed to believe David Whitmer when, we're putting him as a witness to the Book of Mormon, but not believing him, when he says the Melchizedek priesthood was made up after the fact. We're supposed to believe Hiram Page is a credible witness to the Book of Mormon, but then when he uses a seer stone to produce prophecy or revelation that challenges Joseph Smith, we're supposed to believe he's deceived by Satan. Isn't there a little inconsistency there?
Right. Yeah.
It's more than that. I mean, Hiram Page is literally, we're told, is a witness to the Book of Mormon. And so we're supposed to say, you got to believe his experience. And then when he has this experience with the seer stone, we're like, well, don't believe that's real. And then not only that, but then you've got, I think it's like two of the three witnesses that believe Hiram Page is really getting it. So if they believe Hiram Page is getting revelations, of course they believe in Joseph Smith. So if Hiram Page is making it up, Joseph Smith's making it up. These people all believe this stuff, and they have no, I don't want to call them gullible because they come from a worldview, but these witnesses are not reliable, and you could see it over and over and over again because they believe all sorts of crap that we know is just absolutely made up.
That's what you have to say. You can't say that if Hiram's making it up, then Joseph's making it up, because it could be that they believe Hiram and Joseph, but Joseph's right and Hiram's wrong. But what you have to say is their ability to discern, their belief in something is not good evidence of its truthfulness. That's what we can take away from that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so when Hiram Page says, I got this revelation, check this out. And they're like, yeah, that's from God. And they're clearly wrong. And then Joseph Smith's like, dude, you're seeing an angel right now. They're showing you plays. Check it out. This is awesome. They're like, yeah, but that to Nemo's point, they have no power of discernment, much like today's leaders, which is why the only, like to Nemo's point, there's no, would you say matrix to how to know if it's a man?
Metric.
I mean, metric, that's good. So the metric is if you don't have to denounce it, they're speaking as a prophet. The moment you denounce it, it's a man. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. It's always watch General Conference and then go to church the next Sunday and be like, oh my goodness, we got such great guidance from our prophet, until we need to move on to something else. And it's like, well, that was just, dude, Russell Nelson was like almost 100 by that point. He wasn't even there. That's what they'll say in 10 years. But right now they'll do that because right now it's safe to get behind it. But yeah, this Hiram Page story is another one. When I talk about why I like the 8 witnesses, this is a story that gives you such great insight into how Joseph Smith has to react when he loses control. And in this case, with the 8 witnesses, he has control, and that's why he can control what they write in their statement. He can kind of control what they're seeing, what they think they're seeing. And then Hiram Page kind of takes his control away. So Joseph Smith goes and gets a very convenient revelation to get out of it. And that's why I love all of these kind of like things that we don't talk about that often, but give you a lot of insight.
It's almost like basic social psych, right? To see this Joseph Smith's a leader figure, and then you see this other upstart trying to essentially take over. And I mean, you see it with primates, right? You look at study colonies of primates. You got the one who's in charge, and then you got some young upstart comes up and challenges him, and that one's got to put down the older chimp or whatever has got to put down the young upstart who's trying to take over. And you see the same thing playing out here. The same sociality playing out is Joseph Smith's got to put down the threat to his authority. He's got to do it in a way that maintains his credibility.
I also think this speaks to I also think this speaks to Joseph Smith trying to get rid of the stone in general, because the stone is what's having the power, and the stone was what gave Hiram power. So if he can get rid of the stones and have him be the conduit of speaking to God,
Yeah.
then that gives him the power. And so I also think it's interesting in the history of the church, Joseph Smith completely washed out all the use of the seer stone. It only alludes to the Urim and Thummim. And so I think Joseph knew from the beginning, he's like, I have to get rid of this and give myself the power.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. All right. That's good to know.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about John Whitmer's testimony. So despite the fact that the witness statement is ambiguous about holding and inspecting the plates, a few of the witnesses said they handled the plates. And then he says, I desire to testify to all that will come to the knowledge of this address, that I have most assuredly seen the plates from whence the Book of Mormon is translated, and that I have handled these plates, and know of a surety that Joseph Smith Jr. has translated the Book of Mormon by the gift and power of God. And in this thing, the wisdom of the wise most assuredly has perished. Therefore know ye, O ye inhabitants of the earth, wherever this address may come, that I have in this thing freed my garments of your blood, whether you believe or disbelieve. So he's saying that he sees the plates and he handles them. And so,
And
yeah, it's
that
not
phrase at the end is really weird.
Yeah, it is
where
weird.
he's like, because what he's doing there is he's basically intimating that, essentially that if you're punished for being a non-believer, whatever this punishment may be that will cause your blood to be spilled, I'm not responsible anymore, because there's this idea that he has a responsibility to testify of this thing. It's this religious idea more broadly that you have a responsibility to those around you to make sure they believe too, so that they're safe from the punishment that you think is going to happen to them. And it's your job to convince them that that punishment is impending, so that they then get into the ark of safety that you are representing, whatever that is. So you've got that here. He's like, it's not on me if you believe me or disbelieve me. I've done my job. I've told you. That's just strange to me.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's a pretty straight up affirmation of what was in the witness statement, correct?
Yeah. And again, John was the one that was the most, John Whitmer was the one that was most interviewed, and he's the one that we have most of these from, the positive affirming statements that he did see the plates, or that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool.
And so there's another one. This is a letter from Stephen Burnett to Brother Johnson. So, and then we talked about this in the 3 witness statements. Mike, do you want to read this letter?
Yeah. So he wrote, when I came to hear Martin Harris state in public that he never saw the plates with his natural eyes, only in vision or imagination, neither Oliver nor David, and also that the 8 witnesses never saw them and hesitated to sign that instrument for that reason, but were persuaded to do it, the last pedestal gave way. In my view, our foundation was sapped, and the entire superstructure fell in a heap of ruins. I therefore, 3 weeks since in the stone chapel, renounced the Book of Mormon. After we were done speaking, Martin Harris arose and said he was sorry for any man who rejected the Book of Mormon, for he knew it was true. He said he had hefted the plates repeatedly in a box with only a tablecloth or a handkerchief over them, but he never saw them, only as he saw a city through a mountain, and said that he never should have told that the testimony of the 8 was false if it had not been picked out of him, but should have let it pass as it was.
Yeah, so we have this, we talked about this before, and this is more talking about Martin Harris denying that they saw the plates, that he saw them. But it also has that sentence about the 8 witnesses never saw them and they hesitated to sign the instrument for that reason, but then they were persuaded to sign. And so that's the important part here. So, because I said earlier that...
Sure, Martin Harris is saying that the 8 witnesses said they never saw the plates and were pressured to sign the statement.
Yes.
And that's Stephen Burnett quoting Martin Harris.
Right.
Yeah,
and that was in 1838.
Which is around that Kirtland apostasy time, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then Martin Harris gets up and does a Hagrid and goes, I shouldn't have said that. And, you'll be sorry if you deny the Book of Mormon, because I know it's true and I shouldn't have said that it wasn't, or I shouldn't have said what I said about the witnesses. But saying I shouldn't have said that isn't saying I was wrong to have said that, or what I said wasn't true. He's just saying he shouldn't have said it.
Right.
And that's so key, because a lot of apologists will say Martin Harris clarified later, blah, blah. No, he clarified that he was sorry. He told everybody. He's sorry. He said the quiet part out loud. So yeah, he does not deny what he said. All he's saying is, like you said, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, that's all it is. And so this letter is from believing These are believing members trying to figure out what to do. They're basically meeting to try to figure out, because they've all been basically upset with Joseph Smith because he's making all these horrible mistakes, like the Kirtland Safe Society, and they're trying to figure out if the Book of Mormon should still be believed, because they know Joseph Smith has no power from God, because, I mean, it speaks for itself. So that's why Martin Harris is trying to persuade them to still believe in the Book of Mormon. But as this is happening, this statement about the witnesses is coming out, and the people who were believing members who are not sure if they want to be are seeing this and going, yeah, I'm out. Just as if I was in the missionary discussions and the missionary's like, yeah, so these 8 people, they like never really saw it, but they signed it, and they're all in 2 families, but you could believe them. I'd be like if you're watching Shark Tank, I'd be like, with that, I'm out. But they don't tell you that. You don't have those details. So once these guys got the details, they're like, yeah, this is nonsense.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier about the signing of the 8 witnesses. So the church, we have never seen the document. They've never produced it. We don't know if it exists. There are statements like this one that say that they did sign. This one says that they were pressured to sign. So I don't think we can say for sure that such document does not exist. But what I'd like to know is what happened to this document. The church, to my knowledge, unless someone can find it and share it, to my knowledge, the church has never given any whereabouts of this statement. They, even in the books, even in the original manuscript that I have, it doesn't say, oh, it was destroyed or it's gone. It just is silent on the topic of what happened to the signed statement. So yeah.
But I think it almost doesn't matter whether, I mean, it does to an extent matter if there was one, because it could lend more credibility if there's a physically signed document with all their own signatures. But at the same time, if there's coercion involved, as we can see some evidence of, then it doesn't matter if they put pen to paper or someone else did. If they were coerced, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, because if they were able to produce it, would that make a lot of difference? Probably not. Yeah.
Because anyone can hold a spiritual gun to your head and make you sign a piece of paper.
Right. Well, John C. Bennett. Just kidding.
All right. That's a fascinating statement that none of us were made aware of when we were Mormons.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is another one. So John Whitmer reportedly said to Theodore Turley in April 1838, I handled those plates. They were fine engravings on both sides. I handled them. They were shown to me by a supernatural power. And I pulled this one out because I thought it was really interesting, because he's saying that they were shown to him by a supernatural power. But as we know with the story of the 8 witnesses, Joseph Smith just had the plates with him because the translation process was still underway. He still had them. So and then even B.H. Roberts said that there was no supernaturalness about it. They just went to the woods. Joseph uncovered the plates and showed them. So it's curious to me why John Whitmer would say that. Why would he allude to supernatural power? Any thoughts on that?
What's that, 1839?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that like starting to become in vogue now, as they're as the 3 witnesses and others are all explaining their, he's hearing his brother talk about the supernatural powers by which he was shown, and he's kind of leaning into that narrative, perhaps?
But why?
What?
I mean, that is the way memory works, is as you're storing it and retrieving it, and then history happens, you're always adding and removing things from your memory. So maybe he just remembers the 3 witnesses stuff and then adds it in a later account.
And maybe he's retreating. You can retreat into the unprovable. So he realizes that his testimony is a physical one, and it is about physically handling some plates. But if he can retreat into a space of supernatural powers, then it's much harder for people to disprove. Perhaps.
Or he's trying to make it sound cooler.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's interesting nonetheless. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Hiram's testimony. So Hiram's testimony was published in the Times and Seasons in 1839. Hiram Smith gave us his testimony of the gold plates. He says, I thank God that I felt a determination to die rather than deny the things which my eyes had seen, which my hands had handled, and which I had borne testimony to wherever my lot has been cast. So that's
it's consistent.
Yeah, it's consistent, but it's also very brief. He doesn't elaborate.
It's on message.
It's on message, and he did die ultimately for his beliefs. I mean, there's more complex reasons as to why he was in jail in the first place, but he did die for it. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is from Lucy Mack Smith. So in her book written in 1844, Lucy Mack Smith gave more of a background for the 8 witnesses, like B.H. Roberts alluded to. She says, they all, that is that is the male part of the company, repaired to a little grove where it was customary for the family to offer up their secret prayers. As Joseph has been instructed that the plates would be carried there by one of the ancient Nephites, here it was that those 8 witnesses recorded in the Book of Mormon looked upon the plates and handled them, of which they bear witness in the following words. And then she quotes the eyewitness statement. And then she says, after the witnesses returned to the house, the angel again made his appearance to Joseph and received the plates from his hands. And so actually thinking about this now, she's saying that, and I haven't heard this before outside of her, I think, she's saying that an angel, so this is during the translation process because it hasn't been completed. So she's saying, even though Joseph has the plates, the angel comes to the grove with the plates. They see them. I guess they don't see the angel though, so I guess maybe he just drops them off. The 8 witnesses see them, and then Joseph gives the plates back to the angel, and then I guess Joseph gets the plates back again and finishes the translation. So maybe that's what he meant by supernatural power helped him see.
Yeah.
But it's also really confusing. This whole thing is confusing to me.
Why does God need to send an angel to drop off plates? Why can't
Drop off physical plates?
Why can't God just make the plates appear and then make them disappear? Why does he need to send an angel to make them appear and disappear?
Right.
Isn't that a little weird?
Right. Joseph had them. He could have just carried them, which is what I always thought was the case. And I think the other ones have said it's the case.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely. This is comical in a lot of ways. Once you think about, like, if you actually try to picture this happening, it's like, they're like, Joseph, you've been using the plates to translate. Oh yeah, but David's gonna bring it. That's my favorite angel. And then David comes in, and Joseph's like, thanks, David, I'll take it from here. And then they finish, and then Joseph's like, David, I need these picked up, man. And then David's like, sorry, dude, here, I'll it's like I don't mean to sound obnoxious or offensive, but when you think about this, it makes zero sense, because this is the problem with the church wanting this to be a physical event. They want this to be a completely physical event, but then they try to mix in this other stuff because there's so many inconsistencies and none of this makes sense.
Yeah.
I got slightly distracted during that discussion because I saw something on that slide. Can you throw that slide up again, please?
Yes.
It's a slightly tangential point, but it's interesting that they talk about it was customary for the family to offer up secret prayers in a little grove, right? And we have the sacred grove, but it's just come to me that idol worship, groves of trees were forbidden to Jews because that's where idol worship happened. And if you look at 2nd Nephi and the Isaiah verses, 2nd Nephi 12:13, yea, and the day of the Lord shall come upon all the cedars of Lebanon, which is a reference to cedar groves that were used for idol worship. So it's actually quite strange to me all of a sudden, just thinking about it, that the crowning event of Mormonism, the first vision, happened in a grove of trees, when biblically groves of trees were not a place you wanted to be hanging out in.
That's super interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Sorry, that just came to mind.
But also, as you're speaking, it's kind of off topic, but she's saying one of the ancient Nephites, and I'm not sure if she's referencing an angel. Well, she does say angel, so maybe that's what it is, because I was thinking maybe one of the 3, because there's stories of the 3 Nephites throughout the church history. But anyway, but she says angel, so. But that's interesting about the groves.
Yeah, and just generally, why is Lucy's story different,
Right. Yep. Or like what? Yeah.
She's pretty central, right?
Oh, yeah. She's right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's good to know.
Okay. So this is from Hiram Page. And this is a letter from Hiram Page was published in the Ensign of Liberty in March of 1847. Aside from this signed statement, this is the only other time Hiram Page testifies of seeing the plates. Mike, do you want to read this testimony?
Yeah. It says, as to the Book of Mormon, it would be doing injustice to myself and to the work of God of the last days to say that I could know a thing to be true in 1830 and know the same thing to be false in 1847. Okay. To say my mind was so treacherous that I had forgotten what I saw. To say that a man of Joseph's ability, who at the time did not know how to pronounce the word Nephi, doubtful, could write a book of 600 pages as correct as the Book of Mormon without supernatural power. And to say that those holy angels who came and showed themselves to me as I was walking through the field to confirm me.
What? Angel? What?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Now you're good. To confirm me in the work of the Lord of the last days, 3 of whom came to me afterwards and sang a hymn in their own pure language, Adamic language, which we know is we don't need to go into that. Anyways, Yes, it would be treating the God of heaven with contempt to deny these testimonies with too many others to mention here.
Now, it could have been their ancient Native American language. It doesn't need to be the Adamic language, right?
I guess that's true. I guess that's true.
pure.
Oh, their own
Yeah, when
pure
the-
language.
Pure language.
Didn't you just tell us, Julia, that there were no angels, that it was just plates?
So I think he's referencing a different time. So he says, and to say that those holy
I
angels who
think it's
came and
something
showed
else.
themselves to me as I was walking through the field. And so to confirm to me, so even Oliver Cowdery says that an angel visited him before he even sees the plates. And so like I think he's referencing a different time, but then he also says 3 of whom came to me afterwards and sang a hymn. And again, I don't know if he means 3 ancient Nephites or like a different angel.
I know 3 of whom, so that's angels. So
Right, I just don't know where the
Reflective on the
angels would
angels.
originate. Would they be speaking Adamic language or would they be speaking?
it would have to be pure Adamic language. How much of that do we have,
Yeah.
by the way, the pure Adamic language? We've got some examples, but
With the son Amen is the son
the
of
son
God,
Armin,
right?
Armin,
Amen is-
Engelsman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I want to see if I could do one of the hymns
Angelsman?
in the hymn book into Adamic language and see how that goes.
Julie, what do we make from this?
Okay, sorry, we're getting distracted. So all he says here, and we'll talk about it in the next slide. All he says about about his witness of the gold plates is he says what I saw, and so that's all that we have to go off of.
Hmm.
So skipping to this next, so this is from Marvin S. Hill, and he's a church historian. I think he passed away a little bit ago, if I'm getting my timeline correct. So he, an active member of the church, he was a BYU professor, I think. So he says that with only a veiled reference to what I saw, Page does not say that he saw the plates, but that angels confirmed him in his faith. Neither does he say that any coercion was placed upon him to secure his testimony. Despite Page's inconsistencies, it is difficult to know what to make of Harris's affirmation that the 8 saw no plates in the face of John Whitmer's testimony. The original testimony of these 8 men in the Book of Mormon reads somewhat ambiguously, not making clear whether they handled the plates or the leaves of the translated manuscript.
Come on.
Thus, there are some puzzling aspects to the testimonies of the witnesses. If Burnett's statement is given credence, it would appear that Joseph Smith exhorted a deceptive testimony from the 8 witnesses. But why should John Whitmer and Hiram Page adhere to Mormonism and the Book of Mormon so long if they only gave their testimony reluctantly? It may be that, like the 3 witnesses, they expressed a genuine religious conviction. The particulars may not have seemed as important as the ultimate truth of the work.
No, I'm not buying that.
What are your thoughts?
I'm not buying this idea that, oh, well, the details don't matter. It's about the broad message of the work. No, the details absolutely matter because it is by the details that we work out how truthful something is or not. You can't just go, oh, well, the Spirit probably spoke to them, so it doesn't matter whether they
Right.
lied to everyone about the Book of Mormon or not. It absolutely matters, but not least because it wasn't just individuals walking around saying they had a witness of something. It was individuals whose name went on paper and that is being used to try and further the religious work. So that is fraudulent if they are lying, and that behavior is not okay by the church's own standards of honesty. So you can't say it doesn't matter. And then as for this nonsense about the leaves of the plates, it's clear to my reading, unless you're twisting English on its nut, that the leaves are clearly referential to the plates and not just some leaves that could be the plates or could be paper.
Well, if you read it, and so I put it here. So if you read the testimony of and we'll talk about that too. So he says in the testimony of the 8 witnesses, it says, as many of the leaves as the said Smith has translated, we did handle with our hands. So what is he saying? Because you could read it as, oh, we're just holding what Joseph Smith has already translated.
No, because it's in the same sentence as the plates which have the appearance of gold. And as many of the leaves, as Smith said, translated, we did
there's
handle
no way
with our
around
hands.
So
It's
you're
in the
saying,
same sentence. It's definitely about the plates, no?
well,
Yeah, it's
because to
definitely
me,
the place. There's no way.
okay.
I mean, fight back, Julia, please, because like if I'm seeing this wrong,
Well, 'cause
tell me.
it's- Because so many times it says we were shown them, we saw them, we were shown them, we've seen them, and then the only reference it seems to touching them is the leaves, which I guess it could be the leaves, but it also is interesting that the said Smith is translated. Does that exclude the sealed portion? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So you're saying that what they saw when they did have their witness, there was no sealed portion?
No, so they're saying that what they did was they handled with their hands, as so moving
So they're
them,
like flipping through the pages.
flipping them, as many as Smith had translated.
Because it just reads
They
kind of
can't get to the
ambiguously.
sealed bit.
Okay, that makes sense.
This reads almost intentionally ambiguous in points, but to what Nemo was saying, if you look at that sentence, there's really no way to carry that sentence to the end without leaves being the gold plates.
Because
And
then it goes
obviously,
into, and we also saw the engravings thereon.
Yeah.
On what? The papers that Joseph translated? I don't think you put engravings on that.
That's
So,
true.
yeah,
right.
yeah, there's no way.
It's contained.
I could
within...
see why I could see why an apologist would want to take that tact, because you can try to take that tiny dot of ambiguity and drive a private jet through it or something. But yeah, you can't.
Semicolons, man. Semicolons leave all kinds of wiggle room.
The only
They
quick
do.
problem we also should mention that we covered in a previous episode is the problem with Reformed Egyptian and Joseph's misunderstanding that a symbol doesn't represent sentences, when we now know the Egyptian a symbol represents what? A word, And so what did we estimate how tall would the plates have needed to be?
It would be insane.
We compared them to the Darius plates, right? Didn't we? And we worked out that if they were
the
similar to the Darius
tablets, the Purgy tablets are the ones that Fair Mormon cites as one of the greatest evidences for the Book of Mormon, until you look at the numbers and you're like, this tells you without question that the Book of Mormon being on metal plates is completely made up, because it would be impossible. But yeah,
I remember what we said. We said a university dissertation's worth of words per plate would be missing, I think is what we said. So that was 10,000 words.
I say I did the math. It was
weren't there witnesses? Weren't there witnesses that said that there was only 21 sheets, metal sheets?
Yeah, wasn't it like, I thought it was like 12 double-sided or 18 or something. It was.
Oh, maybe
small.
maybe it was double-sided.
We did it in the episode in the Purgy tablets, which Fair Mormon cites as one of the greatest evidences for the Book of Mormon, is 200 words on 3 tablets. And so I went through and I adjusted the size, because I think the Purgy tablets were smaller. So I moved the size up to move the words up. And even, it was you would literally need 11 witnesses, and they probably couldn't even carry all of the plates if they were actually made of gold or metal. So yeah, it's one of those things where
thousands of words would be missing.
Yes. And so to this article saying the details don't matter. Well, the details of the gold plates tell you that this is like cartoonishly bad as far as any claim of authenticity. And if you watch, there's been podcasts done in recent months on the historicity of metal in ancient times. That's like Book of Mormon Central does. And they give it with such confidence, but they also use a lot of weasel words. Like this could tell us, well, this shows the technology might have been available, but there's not a single example they give that fits both the density of the words, the time, the place. There's nothing that fits the Book of Mormon in ancient times being on long records on metal plates. Just do not exist. They know it, and that's why they use all those weasel words and try to get around that. But yeah, this gets really, really bad real quick if you're going to go that route.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So again, reiterating with what Hiram Page, he says, it's just interesting that he only says what I saw. He doesn't go into any details about what happened that day. And so I just thought that was interesting too, despite what Marvin Hill, his apologetics about it. But
ooh, can I add one more thing real quick? I don't want to keep going back, but that
Sure.
Marvin S. Hill thing where he basically says, hey, if they believed that the details don't matter, I want to see BYU or the church write publications that give that same space to every other religion, because they won't. So that's just special pleading. So I just wanted to make that note, because you're not going to give that same grace, that same space to any other religion that you think isn't true. So just throwing that out there.
Very good point.
yeah. Okay, so this next one is probably my favorite story of the 8 witnesses. So this comes in his book, A History of Illinois, from its commencement as a state in 1818 to 1847. Governor Thomas Ford, or I guess he's an ex-governor, gives some details concerning the Mormon Church. John, do you want to read this account?
Absolutely. So this is Thomas Ford, governor of Illinois. Quote, the most probable account of these certificates is that the witnesses were in the conspiracy aiding the imposture. But I have been informed by men who were once in the confidence of the prophet that he privately gave a different account of the matter. It is related that the prophet's early followers were anxious to see the plates. The prophet had always given out that they could not be seen by the carnal eye, but must be spiritually discerned, that the power to see them depended upon faith and was the gift of God, to be obtained by fasting, prayer, mortification of the flesh, and exercises of the spirit, that so soon as he could see the evidences of a strong and lively faith in any of his followers, they should be gratified in their holy curiosity. So what I'm getting there is that Joseph Smith told people, like the Bible says about God, you can't see the plates or touch the plates without divine intervention. And that, to me, screams of Joseph needing to explain why he can't just show them to people normally. He needs some excuse so that he can't just show them to people. So he makes up this idea that God and angels have to be involved, right? Which contradicts, is, if I'm remembering right, the 8 witnesses' testimony itself, right?
Yeah. Well, there's the absence of angels in
Right.
some accounts, I guess. I guess with Lucy and one of John's, there was supernatural.
Well, what else did you, Julie, or everyone?
Also, so there's another slide
Okay.
with it where he finishes the story. Do you want to keep going with this one?
He set them to continual prayer and other spiritual experiences to acquire this lively faith, by means of which the hidden things of God could be spiritually discerned. And at last, when he could delay them no longer, he assembled them in a room and produced a box, which he said contained the precious treasure. The lid was opened, the witnesses peeped into it, but making no discovery, for the box was empty. They said, "Brother Joseph, we did not see the plates." The prophet answered them, "O ye of little faith, how long will God bear with this wicked and perverse generation? Down on your knees, brethren, every one of you, and pray God for the forgiveness of your sins and for a holy and living faith which cometh down from heaven." The disciples dropped to their knees and began to pray in the fervency of their spirit, supplicating God for more than 2 hours with fanatical earnestness, at the end of which time, looking again into the box, they were now persuaded that they saw the plates. I leave it to philosophers to determine whether the fumes of an enthusiastic and fanatical imagination are thus capable of blinding the mind and deceiving the senses by so absurd a delusion. And what comes to my mind is 2 things. One is that Martin Harris, how he couldn't see the angel of the plates until he withdrew, and then he was later able to. So this speaks to Joseph's ability to convince people that they were able to see things that they couldn't really see. But what this doesn't account for is the eventual testimony that they handled them with their hands, right? That it was a physical.
Right.
So I don't mean to steal your thunder. Julia, what did you want to say? And then what did everyone else want to say about this account?
Well, this one seems like I almost didn't want to add this one. It's just really fun to hear because it's just a fun story. And we do see Joseph Smith's behaving like this later with other revelations where he's with Sydney and they're like in this, I don't know how to explain this, like trying to see the same vision. Like, do you see this? Yeah, I see it. And that kind of thing. So like this sort of speaks to that. It is very different from the other from the witness statement and from what they said afterwards, because they did say that they saw and they handled. Whereas here they said he's saying he's getting his source from people who were around Joseph, men who were once in the confidence of the prophet. He doesn't give specific names. So it's very different. It's very out there as far as the sources and the testimonies of the witnesses. But it's just really interesting to me that this exists at all.
I mean, it sounds like plausible behavior. I just don't know how much credence I would put in Thomas Ford's story here, because he doesn't even name his source and it's secondhand.
Yeah.
So that's how I would be fair about this. But it sounds like the sort of behavior that you would use to engender this kind of experience. So it doesn't sound unreasonable in that sense, because forcing people to go through, fasting, forcing people to go through long periods of prayer, potentially isolation with that prayer, mortification of the flesh, so the suppression of their desires, which is often like a reference for things like fasting and whatnot, putting them in that position, showing them a box, them going it's empty, and then essentially punishing them and making them for 2 hours pray, and then going, right now, do you see it? What answer are they going to give you? But yes, we see it because we want the punishment to be over, almost. You can kind of, looking at it secularly, you could look at it like that. That's not to say Joseph Smith actually did this, but you can see how this pattern of behavior could be used. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And it also just makes me think of the 3 witnesses where Martin was very insistent, or it seems like he spoke about it the most, where he says, we didn't actually see the plates. It was just a visionary state. And so it just kind of makes me think of that where that's, I don't know how much credit to give this one, but it was worth putting it out here.
Yeah. It's got
Yeah.
details that make sense, but then a lot of them don't. And like Nemo said, and Julia said too, there's no names. I feel like if this was something that was really being said by people that were really close to Joseph Smith, that were, let's just be honest at this point, if they're telling it, if they really are telling it to Ford, they're pretty angry, right? Why would they not publish it? Why would they not give it to a reporter? It does feel like this is something that should or would have some corroboration somewhere if it actually happened like that. So this almost feels like what we talk about, like the Hoffman forgeries, where you use details that are real and then you weave other stuff into it. It kind of feels like that, where it's got details that make sense, especially like you said, Julie, with the 3 witnesses with Martin Harris removing himself because he's not praying hard enough or he's not in the right spiritual mindset. And then later Joseph comes to him, they do it again, and all of a sudden he claims to see it. So you got that element, but it also it feels too good to be true in terms of like being that descriptive, where there's nothing else in any other contemporary writings that kind of have those same people telling those same stories.
It's like the Bennett and the gun incident that we had from
it's a lot like that.
Right.
Yep,
although I will say, was it the Burnett letter where he says that the 8 hesitated to sign?
Yeah.
And then Martin.
And he used the word persuaded in that one too. When you said persuaded in the Ford thing, when he says basically they were persuaded, they saw it. That popped in my head too. That in that letter from Stephen Burnett, he says that the 8 had to be persuaded. So that word caught my eye. But yeah, there is.
So I guess you can see that one's sort of similar. It reads a little similarly, although again, it's sort of like the Bennett gun story. Yeah.
Yep. And you could also have, when was the Ford one? It was in the 40s, right? Like
it's on the slide.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to go back on my phone to look at the slides. I'm all off now.
Wait,
but
John, can you throw it back up on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is an 1854, and so that Stephen Burnett account happened in 1838, right? And so you wonder if that story starts circulating around the church, especially people who leave the church. Then they tell the story, and it gets all these other details. And then by the time Ford hears it and publishes it, he's heard this story that's been kind of recycled a bunch of times and had all these extra details, because it does have some of those elements of that 1838 Stephen Burnett letter. And you just wonder if he's conflating all of these stories into something when he publishes his history. So that pops into my head too. Yeah,
that's a possibility. Yeah.
So for those who accuse us of just jumping on anything that might make the witnesses seem incredible, no. We're analyzing this stuff as best we can.
Yeah. Want to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so then you have Samuel's testimony from 1863. So published in the Latter-day Saint Millennial Star on June 6th of 1863, the story of Phineas Young, the brother of Brigham Young's conversion, was printed. Animo, do you want to read this? And it goes on for a couple of slides.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. While engaged in conversation with the family, a young man came in and walked across the room to where I was sitting, held a book toward me, saying, "There is a book, sir, I wish you to read." The thing appeared so novel to me that for a moment I hesitated, saying, "Pray, sir, what book have you?" "The Book of Mormon, or, as it is called by some, the Golden Bible." "Ah, sir, then it purports to be a revelation." "Yes," he said, "it is a revelation from God." I took the book and by his request looked at the testimony of the witnesses. Said he, "If you will read this book with a prayerful heart and ask God to give you a witness, you will know of the truth of this work." I told him I would do so, and then asked him his name. He said his name was Samuel H. Smith. "Ah," I said, "you are one of the witnesses." "Yes," said he. "I know the book to be a revelation from God, translated by the gift and power of the Holy Ghost, and that my brother, Joseph Smith Jr., is a prophet, seer, and revelator."
So I think the reason I point this out is just because he has a chance to speak to a convert or a potential convert about the Book of Mormon, and he's like, "Oh, you're one of the witnesses." And I think with me, if I was Samuel, I would have taken and launched into the story of what, just seeing the plates and handling them. But he doesn't do that. He just says, "I know the book to be a revelation from God, translated by the gift and power of the Holy Ghost." Yeah. And that Joseph Smith's a prophet. So he's just, I don't know.
Yeah. Why wouldn't
it's just
you?
not a very
even
full...
sort of matter of factly, you would go, "Yeah, I am one of the witnesses. So this is what happened. I held the plates and I looked through them and I saw all the engravings. I've seen these genuinely ancient records, and I know that my brother translated them, and the resulting book is what I've asked you to read." So just as simple as that. But his job as a witness of the reality of these plates, the crucial thing that Joseph Smith claimed to have that set him apart, that he had these genuine ancient scriptures that he was then translating, he's failed to do. He's already into the gift and power of the God, and by the Holy Ghost you'll know the truthfulness of it. It's like, well, why do we need the Holy Ghost when you could actually just convince me that the plates are real and that you held them because
Unless
you did?
unless he's just relying on, because he's holding the scriptures, unless he's just relying on his previous words from years ago, or from, I guess it was more contemporary then.
Yeah,
but
maybe he's like, I said it as best I could then. I got
right.
nothing to
Maybe
add.
he's, Anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
So this one is probably the most interesting slide to me about this topic. This is Joseph Smith Sr.'s testimony, and this is from 1870. So Joseph Smith Sr. gave one other testimony of seeing the plates, and it was published 30 years after he died. In the historical magazine, Interview with the Father of Joseph Smith, the Mormon prophet, 40 years ago, his account of the finding of the sacred plates. A man named Fayette Latham gives the following account. Mike, do you want to read this account?
Yep. All right. So it says, Joseph persevered and brought the article safely home. I weighed it, said Mr. Smith Sr., and it weighed 30 pounds. In answer to our question as to what it was that Joseph Smith had thus obtained, he said it consisted of a set of gold plates about 6 inches wide and 9 or 10 inches long. They were in the form of a book, half an inch thick, but were not bound at the back like our books, but were held together by several gold rings in such a way that the plates could be opened similar to a book. Under the first plate or lid, he found a pair of spectacles about 1.5 inches longer than those used at the present day, the eyes not of glass but of diamond. On the next page were representations of all the Masonic implements as used by the Masons at the present day. That's interesting. The remaining pages were closely written over in characters of some unknown tongue, the last containing the alphabet of this unknown language.
Perfect. And I see that Nemo's holding up his Urim and Thummim.
Oh, go ahead, Nemo. Okay. So what do we think about Joseph Smith Sr.'s testimony?
So if you put it back up, and I had a little sketch of this. So Joseph Smith Sr., he's describing a very different set of gold plates than everyone else is describing. He's saying they were 30 pounds. They were 6 inches wide, 9 or 10 inches long. They were half an inch thick. There were several gold rings. I guess several could be 3. And then he says under the first plate or lid, there was that Urim and Thummim, which I don't think that this account is anywhere else. And then he talks about the Masonic implements on the pages.
So there was compasses and squares and
which
gauges.
masonry. So the ancient Nephites were Masons. And then the last containing an alphabet of the unknown language. So there's like a key of it. But he's also got the seer stone and the Urim and Thummim, so that seems sort of unnecessary.
Why would the key be there?
Right.
But then
why would the key be there?
1870?
Yeah.
Because like Joseph, with the grammar and alphabet of the Egyptian language, part of Joseph's translation process in later days was to try and produce an alphabet so that he could then use that to translate documents. So that tracks as to what his father might have seen of later behavior.
Yeah, so I drew little sketches.
The interview was given in...
it was published.
Yeah, the interview would have happened before 1842, excuse me, which is when Joseph Smith Sr. died. Yeah. So,
and it was before. I guess it could have been after they got the Book of Abraham and before he died, because it doesn't say like I did this on 1830. It's just saying 40 years ago. So it could be, Joseph Smith Sr. conflating these different things, especially when you get into the Masonry, because that would have been later and all of that. So that could be.
And he's getting older. And
why are these historians publishing accounts decades after the actual interviews happened? We had some of those.
Right. That's a great question.
Because they're sent by Satan to deceive us, John.
They're just holding them.
I mean, does that automatically mean we should just fully discount them? I'm sure that's what apologists would say.
I wouldn't discount them, but like maybe taking them with a grain of salt.
Apologists would say that for sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and show us the next slide if you want.
Anyway, I just think his sizing is just really interesting. So in the top little, I've got a slide of little sketches of the plates that the other witnesses described and the ones that Joseph Smith Sr. described for those listening. So the one on top is a larger set that we think of when we think of the plates, the ones depicted in the films. So the other witnesses said it was 6 inches by 8 inches. This was Lucy Smith. Martin Harris said it was 7 inches by 8 inches. Martin Harris said it was 4 inches thick. And then 6 inches thick, 2 inches of that contained the Book of Mormon. And I think that was David Whitmer. I can't remember. David Whitmer says it was bound by 3 D-shaped rings, and he's quoting Mary Whitmer. And Martin Harris says that those rings were silver. David Whitmer says that the pages were as thick as parchment. And then Martin Harris says that it weighed 40 to 60 pounds, and Emma was able to move them from place to place as she was cleaning. Martin Harris's daughter could lift them, and Catherine Smith found them very heavy. And then you have Joseph Smith Sr., who says that they were, again, 6 inches wide and 9 or 10 inches long, half an inch thick, held together by several gold rings. It weighed 30 pounds, and he gives no description of the sealed portion. So, to me, it's why is this so different?
And like, I got a ruler out just because I was trying to work out, what the difference is between thinking they're 8 inches long and 10 inches long, and I realized inches are quite the measure. So it's a good,
Hold it
it's
up.
a good amount longer.
Yeah.
So there's 8 inches long,
Yeah.
or there's 10 inches long. 8, 10, 8, 10. Quite significant difference.
Does gold,
Particularly,
can gold be shaped into paper that's as thin? I'm going to say thin as parchment. Is that even how gold works?
Especially
you could
if
hammer
you're,
gold out quite flat, I would imagine.
but if you're trying to engrave on both sides, that's one of the things that really catches me, because I think it was Emma. She said you can ruffle the edges of the pages or thumb the edges like you do a book, and you can hear the rustling. I don't.
How metal works.
Right. And especially if you're putting engravings on both sides, like that really throws me off.
I've heard theories of of a copper center and then gold over the top, because the gold was malleable enough to engrave and blah blah blah. But then that's a compound material for a start, which is quite complex technology, and then that would not give the paper the pages, plates, the ability to rustle. It's that rustling. Paper doesn't rustle. Metal doesn't rustle like paper.
Yeah,
It's
that's
very
how
thin.
metal works. And by the way, 40 to 60 pounds, like there's no way, right?
Well, the only metal that rustles is aluminium, Americans, aluminium foil, right? Tin foil, that we would call it tin foil here, right? That can rustle.
If you tried to engrave in that, it would rip immediately.
Exactly. It's too
Yeah.
thin at that point. So in order for it to be thin enough to rustle, it's too thin to do its job.
Yeah. Were you saying something like about the weight, the alleged weight?
Well, I will say that I will say this with Trent Told, in your episode that you did with Trent Told, who I can't remember the exact 1380. He did an episode showing about him creating the plates, and you've got them in your studio, John. But he says that whenever he hands them to people, they guess 50, 60 pounds. But he says, I think he says they're 37 pounds or 35 pounds. And so I guess you could see it that way. But my thoughts are like, these are people that work on farms. They know what things weigh. Why is his guess so different? So I guess, but I mean, at the same time with Trent Told, I mean, you can see it working that way, where everyone guesses heavier, but it's really lighter. And so maybe Joseph Smith Sr. just really knew that it was only 30 pounds.
The weight doesn't bother me so much as the massive difference in dimensions, particularly in the thickness. Even like thinking it's a couple of inches longer. If you're many years later and you're thinking back, that's fine. But it's the fact that he describes it as being so much thinner than the others,
right?
And the lack of the sealed portion and the number of rings. Those seem like sort of
There's a Mormon apologist. His name is Jonathan Neville, and he wrote a book called "What Happened to the Gold Plates." And he speculates that there were 2 separate plates, 2 separate sets of plates or books. And this is one of the reasons why the 8 witnesses is so different, and why you have so the angel has.
I love it when I just get to add things,
right?
And just say
it's a
that
really
fixes
complicated,
it.
Right? It's a really complicated story.
Okay.
But if you're interested in looking at that theory,
no, carry on. Sorry, carry on.
Oh well, he says that. So in this, so Joseph Smith has the small set of plates because that's what he's translating last, and so people speculate that the small set is actually the small 10 inch by 1 inch thick. That's the plates. But the witnesses, all the rest of them describe a larger set. And so they speculate that Joseph has the small plates. The angel come and takes the big plates to the forest and shows them all the plates, and then takes them back wherever he takes them. So that's an apologetic theory that if you want to read more about it, it's Jonathan Neville. So super interesting.
Yeah, one thing about apologetics is when you make a claim. I'm gonna grab so I got one of my kids' Nerf darts, right? So you make a claim, and the answer isn't here because it's not it's not true. The claim isn't true. You then make the target bigger, so you expand the universe. And so what that is doing is saying these don't add up, so we're just going to expand the universe and say, well, it could just be this if you just go here and go there. And that's one of the things we've really tried to hammer on these episodes, is that you can't do that, because you're not allowing that space for anyone else or anything else, because you wouldn't. Because if you tell these stories to people who are, even if believers in the church, if you could tell these stories to them in a way that doesn't alert them that you're talking about the history of their own church, they're going to say, this is made up. This is ridiculously, absurdly made up. And so what the apologists are doing is they're trying to expand that universe to try to find a way to make it plausible. And you see that over and over with every
Perfect
topic
example
we've
of
covered.
that is the Heartland model versus the hemispheric model, right? Is this idea of, they used to put in the Book of Mormon until about the 1920s, I think, that, this body of water is Lake so-and-so, and this body of water is this and that. The narrow neck of land is here. And then all of a sudden, B.H. Roberts and co., they're like, this doesn't work. And they have to, like you say, expand the universe. They go, right, well, where can we look for actual ancient civilizations, at least on the same continent? And so they have to go.
And sometimes they can shrink those too, where they say it's the principal ancestors of the Native Americans. Oh, it's just among the ancestors of the Native Americans.
Yeah, so you're expanding the universe of belief, but you're shrinking the people. You're making the Book of Mormon people completely irrelevant in order to keep that bigger universe open, which again shows you just how.
And at what point does the claim shrink to the point where it's no longer a unique claim? And I think that's what we're seeing in the church in modern days. They're becoming more and more mainstream Christian, to the point of you're losing a lot of unique Mormon doctrines. And at what point then have you shrunk the church to the point where it's unrecognizable from another Protestant church?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're slow. That's the internal battle for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, his description of the lid with the seer or the Urim and Thummim underneath it. I didn't put that in the drawing, but like I don't even know how to picture that.
That could have been Joseph's way of keeping the Urim and Thummim stored. He just pops them inside the top cover of the book.
Another thing that's interesting is I found out recently that in Jane Manning James's diary, she talks about how Lucy Mack Smith still kept the Urim and Thummim with her throughout the rest of her life, I think. And she even produced them for Jane Manning James, although she kept them wrapped in a muslin handkerchief or something. And she was able to feel the two different rocks. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting that she, according to that,
meant to have been taken back.
I don't know. According to one of the prophets, I think it was Joseph F. or Joseph Fielding, he said that the angel took them back, but that doesn't account for.
We're talking about the spectacles, right?
The spectacles that he was. Yeah.
Oh, see, I thought you were talking about the seer stone, because they that. Okay, yeah, because Urim and Thummim again is right.
Yeah, well, Jane Manning James said she felt the two rocks. Yeah,
I thought when Joseph lost 116 pages, I thought there's an account that says he never got the spectacles back after that, but it's been a while, so I'm not positive. But I thought that was part of the messiness, and that's why you can look at that account and say from that point, the Book of Mormon as we have it today was done with a rock and a hat, because I believe there's an account that says he never got the spectacles back, and I also believe there's no real reference to those being used, or the whatever you want to call them, Nephite interpreters, after the initial start with Martin Harris. But I know we're probably getting.
I should grab the time. I should grab the probably. But I should grab the timeline for that and see try to track what happened to them, because people wonder what happened to the Urim and Thummim. But
I don't think it's clear.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. Yeah.
All right. Well, I still think the metal pages don't work, the crinkle, and I don't think the weight.
No,
I don't think the weight matches with how heavy it would need to be gold, but to have enough pages to fit all the words.
That's true. Because if they're light enough, they're not going to be that heavy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So if anyone out there is watching this and you're really interested, look up Book of Mormon Central's podcasts. They've done guests on other podcasts on their gold plates, and look at the examples they give you, and then realize what would have to happen for a 270,000 word book to be in gold. It is impossible, especially if you're talking double-sided. It gets ridiculous. Like, just imagine you're denting on one side, you're engraving all these words, you flip the other page, and then you look back at your first, like, oh crap, I just popped out that one. I mean, it's just it's believable from a magical worldview point of view, but when you look at it today, you're like, there's no way. It's just, it gets absurd. And so watch their podcast and then kind of think of what they're saying and what needs to happen for the Book of Mormon, because you can kind of see through what they're doing very quickly. It's just that on the podcast, they're not pushed back on that.
Yeah.
All right. Enough said. Let's keep going.
Yeah. But the weight and the thickness does prove a big problem.
Yeah. I think makes no sense. And also just these different accounts are really weighing up. Why are you guys laughing?
Oh, just because we're like, oh, let's move on. And then we're like, well, actually, no, there's more that's wrong with this.
Okay, I'm guilty, but it's
That's
so
fine.
many different accounts, so many different approaches. It's starting to seem problematic.
Yes.
I just wanted to make that observation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, also, I got. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so then John Whitmer. So according to an interview published in the Deseret News on August 14th of 1878, all 8 witnesses did not view the plates at the same time. They saw them in 2 groups of 4, which is also something that I was never taught at any point in my life. Can you guys like play off of each other? I think it's an interviewer, and then I think it's John.
John, do you want to interview me?
Okay.
So John, you've got the eyes.
I'm I, and Nemo's
Is he?
John Whitmer.
I'm
Is that
John
right?
Whitmer, baby.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm the Deseret News, and you're John Whitmer.
Indeed.
So did you handle the plates with your hands?
I did so.
Then they were a material substance.
Yes, as material as anything can be.
They were heavy to lift.
Yes, and as you know, gold is a heavy metal. They were very heavy.
How big were the leaves?
So far as I recollect, 8 by 6 or 7 inches.
Were the leaves thick?
Yes, just so thick that characters could be engraven on both sides.
How were the leaves joined together?
In 3 rings, each one in the shape of a D, with the straight line towards the center.
In what place did you see the plates?
In Joseph Smith's house, he had them there.
Did you see them covered with a cloth?
No, he handed them uncovered into our hands, and we turned the leaves sufficient to satisfy us.
Were you all 8 witnesses present at the same time?
No. At that time, Joseph showed the plates to us. We were 4 persons present in the room, and at another time he showed them to 4 persons more.
Okay, thank you. So I just think that's super interesting because I think in most of the visual aids and things like that, even we showed one earlier where all 8 are together in the woods. And Lucy Mack Smith said that they went to the grove, and you had said that you pointed out about the Jewish nature of doing that. So we have some saying that it was in the woods, then John Whitmer saying it was in the house, but he doesn't know where the other ones saw it. Also, why would Joseph Smith split it up? And also, if four are seeing them and then 4 are seeing them at a different time, why are they all signing the
family only
same?
for the 4 Whitmers?
But also, like, that seems kind of problematic to me with the signing all the same document because they're 2 different witnesses. Like, I don't know. I just think that's a little odd.
So, I mean, there's a few things in there that are interesting. Like, if you pull that back up, he talks about, he describes leaves again. So he said, we turned the leaves sufficiently to satisfy us. So that puts poo-poo to that other guy's argument about how leaves
Marvin
might
Hill,
have been. Yeah. So
because he's referencing the actual pages of.
Yeah. And he's there turning the leaves to satisfy us because we handled them, the plates, uncovered. And this weird sort of squirrely language, as material as anything can be. Like, what is he on about? Like, is he a philosopher? Like, what? That's a really weird way to phrase it if you're not trying to leave yourself wiggle room for pushback. You know, you're hedging massively there. By if someone goes, well, okay, well, where are they now? Or you really just saw them spiritually. It's like, well, yeah, you know, there's the spiritual and the material. They sometimes, you know, it's just. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was a funny question. Did you see them covered with the cloth? Now, wait, are you seeing them or are they covered with the cloth? But how do you, that was a weird question. And then, this 4 and 4 thing is almost as bad as the depictions of the Book of Mormon translation to me. If they were never in a forest and they were never all together, 8 together, then all the church's art since the beginning have been deceiving all of us.
And I want to point out where this was published. Deseret News. So church-controlled newspaper. So this is an official church outlet. And again, one of the very few things that we have to go by in this minefield of when things are from God and when they're just some bloke's opinion is who's published it. And this is an official church publication. So they are in some way endorsing this version of events in this newspaper. That
is never picked up by any of the art that is also called for by the church.
Because we know the church has absolutely no problem hiding versions or accounts of events that don't line up with the narrative that they want people to see. Just look at the First Vision accounts that were ripped out and then put back.
or even Lucy Mack Smith, who like Brigham Young made everyone burn her original story or book, and then he had to rewrite it. And even her, she says that an angel came and dropped them off or picked them back up. And here he's saying, no, they were just already in the house because Joseph had them. And also, I don't understand why he does it in groups of 4. Like,
that's what I want to know.
These homes held all their family. Like, there weren't big homes, but like.
Well, we know that, I'm going to be facetious again, we know that Joseph Smith can fend off multiple attackers with a bad leg, running for 3 miles, carrying heavy plates. So maybe he thought he could take 4 of them if they tried to steal them, but he didn't trust 8 in one go. He thought they might mob him.
I keep forgetting that he had a limp and a lisp because of his broken tooth and a hurt thumb. I guess the broken tooth happens later. But I forgot he had the limp.
I mean,
fend them off, but
it's also the same. Oh yeah, I was saying it's also the same thing as the 3 witnesses, where Martin Harris has to go because he doesn't see it, and then he sees it later, and then they sign a statement as if they're all there, and so it makes you wonder. I mean, we'll never know the answer to this, but it makes you wonder which 4 were left off the first time. Is it 4 people like, dude, I'm not seeing crap, and Joseph's like, why don't you go outside? We'll get to you in a second. Go fast some more, and then I'll get you some Sacramento wine. Maybe you'll start seeing stuff. And so I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, why did he split them up? Because 4 weren't seeing it, like Martin Harris didn't see it, or is he doing it where he's like, you 4 are good? I got through this. Okay, you guys believe this? Okay, bring I don't know. It's all speculative.
I joked that it was a Whitmer family only event for the first one.
Yeah.
But actually, there are 2 neat groups there. There is Joseph Smith's family plus Hiram Page, and then there's the Whitmers. So it could make sense if I was. Again, we don't know who the groups were, but it could make sense that he can easily convince the Whitmer family to have the same experience, and then he convinces his own family and Hiram Page to have the experience.
So, like, maybe it's easier to lead if you're going with that theory. Easier to lead through that experience with a smaller group.
A smaller group and a group of people that are related, because they're all invested in each other, like in supporting each other through familial ties as well as through a shared magical worldview.
Yeah. That's true. And also this kind of combats Thomas Ford's account, secondhand account, where he says that they were all brought in and saw an empty box. Whereas John Whitmer's like, no, we weren't never all together. We were in groups of 4. So that would kind of put less credit on Thomas Ford's account.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But either way, the church clearly didn't view this as problematic because they published it in their own newspaper.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just interesting why the church never depicts it that way. Why is it always in the grove with all 8? Or that's what I've seen anyway. I don't think I've seen.
Yeah, well, they got to stick with what's in the Book of Mormon. So I mean, you can't go away from that, because all of a sudden people are like, wait a second, that art shows different than what you were converting people with. I mean, that really is what it comes down to, and it sounds a lot better to have 8 people all believing at once as opposed to having to bring in 2 separate groups of 4. So, yeah.
Okay, so I think we can go on to the next slides. Okay, so this is another one of John Whitmer's testimonies. As published in the Saints Herald in August of 1878, Myron H. Bond interviewed John Whitmer. Old Father Whitmer told me last winter, with tears in his eyes, that he knew as well as he knew he had in existence that Joseph translated the ancient writing, which was upon the plates, which he saw and handled, and which as one of the scribes he helped to copy as the words fell from Joseph's lips by supernatural or almighty power. So this one just confirms he also sees and he handles the plates. And then you have another one from Samuel. In 1883, Daniel Tyler recalled visiting Samuel Smith in Pennsylvania in the spring of 1832, which resulted in his own conversion. Daniel recorded, Elder Samuel Smith read the 29th chapter of Isaiah at the first meeting and delineated the circumstances of the coming forth of the Book of Mormon, of which he said he was a witness. He knew his brother Joseph had the plates, for the prophet had shown them to him, and he had handled them and seen the engravings thereon. His speech was more like a narrative than a sermon. So this one again supports the original statement of the 8 witnesses. And then with Jacob Whitmer, we've only got 2 from him, and they're both from his kids, and they read very similarly. According to Andrew Jensen, John C. Whitmer shared his father's testimony. My father, Jacob Whitmer, was always faithful and true to his testimony in regard to the Book of Mormon, and confirmed it on his deathbed. And then he has another kid. In the same year, Jacob's other son, Captain David P. Whitmer, used almost the same language as his other sons. I got the name wrong. As his other son, John C. Whitmer. My father, Jacob Whitmer, was always faithful and true to his testimony to the Book of Mormon and confirmed it on his deathbed. In fact, I think, are there different words or are they both the same? It's just interesting to me that two of his kids are using the exact same words. And these two testimonies are the only thing that we have from Jacob outside of the 8 witness statement.
They are suspiciously similar.
Right.
Almost word for word. In fact, so testimony to the Book of Mormon and in regard to the Book of Mormon and confirmed on his deathbed.
Yeah. But super close.
Strikes me as rehearsed, some might say, between the two brothers.
Okay, so then we can go on to the 8 witness statements, or other witnesses to the plates outside of the 8. Do we want to keep going?
So is this a good place to pause?
Yeah. I think this is a good place to pause because I think we've done a pretty good review of just an introduction to the 8 witnesses and what they claim to see and what the differences were. I think it would be cool to have anyone who wants to share any summaries of what we've discussed so far. And then we can, end this one in under 2 hours, and then try for a second and maybe a third episode if we need it. So, Mike, I'm curious if there's any summative comments that you want to make, and then we'll do Nemo, and then we'll do Julia.
Yeah. So when we did the Book of Abraham episode, we talked about how the Book of Abraham translation being wrong is such a big problem, and I talked about how there are a lot of apologists within the church, and I've been told this specifically by people that they've said if the Book of Abraham translation was correct, there'd be no need for faith. And I always kind of think that's a horrible argument because we are told that we have a God, the God of Mormonism is our Heavenly Father who loves us so much, and his entire plan is to bring every one of us back to him that he possibly can, right? Because he loves us so much. In the 8 witnesses, you can see that this God of Mormonism is missing every opportunity to get more people back to him. If the God of Mormonism is true and the Book of Mormon is true, as I said at the beginning, the 8 witnesses, because it's a physical event, because this is literally plates on a table that any person off the street can walk in and see, you would have a reporter, you'd have a governor, you'd have all of the people that are telling us that Joseph Smith is a con man going in there and seeing him and going, holy crap, Joseph Smith was not making it up. He's telling the truth. This is true. And they go out, and you've got governors, you've got reporters saying, this is the real deal, guys. But instead, the God of Mormonism chooses 2 families to go in there that are already believers in the magical worldview to do it. To me, that tells you beyond any doubt that Joseph Smith knows that he doesn't have plates with ancient engravings, that he is making this up, whether it's a prop set of plates or whether it's something else. Because if this could pass physical inspection, he would be showing people outside of his inner circle so that people would believe. And so I guess I would just summarize it by saying the reason I think this is more important is because we're seeing how the sausage is made and we're seeing how unconfident Joseph Smith is that these could pass physical inspection. And because he's unconfident, you can see in the approaches he's taking to getting these witnesses that he's doing everything he can to make sure this doesn't get out beyond his inner circle that already believes this. And so for me, that's why it's important. And that's why the 8 witnesses are really important, just as the 116 pages. It's showing us how Joseph Smith is trying to navigate building belief in him as a prophet while also not being willing to actually show what he's got going on.
I disagree on some of those points there.
Yeah, please do.
Or I can certainly.
That's why he hates you, Nemo.
Yeah. No. What do you got, Nemo? What you got this time?
I can certainly see the apologetic argument around. Yeah, well, I mean, you have to look no further than the temple to see what is the difference between secret and sacred, right? So it wasn't that Joseph Smith was keeping these secret from people. He wasn't trying to hide them. They were just too sacred to show to people who had not gone through the sufficient spiritual mortification of the flesh. They had not gone through the sufficient fasting and praying in order to be in the presence of such sacred objects. And this from a God who struck people down for touching something they weren't meant to touch. He struck people dead for touching something that everyone could look at, but they weren't allowed to touch, right? You can't steady the ark or you'll be struck down. So there's scriptural precedent for an object so sacred that only certain people can interact with it, even if it is real. So that's what I would imagine the apologetic pushback on those points would be. But
you could also push back on that and say, well, what about these other items that were, I guess, even more sacred than the Book of Mormon, like the scrolls of Abraham, which is
who says they're more sacred?
Well, they're older. They have more. There's more revelation in them that is new to us that the Book of Mormon doesn't contain. Like I would argue that's that would be what you would want to hide, I guess, if you're going to go that route.
I mean, but we're getting to the problem then with the idea that the Book of Mormon contains the fullness of the gospel, because actually the Doctrine and Covenants and the Book of Abraham contain the fullness of the gospel. So I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just pointing the argument that could be made there. Once you retreat to sanctity, you as the person telling that story get to control what is sacred and why people shouldn't get to look at your stuff, like the endowment ceremony. There's no reason people can't watch the endowment ceremony. There's no reason you couldn't have a balcony of people watching the endowment ceremony. But the church and the religious institution gets to decide that is too sacred for the people to see. And Joseph, you could make the same argument with those plates as to why other people don't get to see them.
I mean, the temple's a different discussion, because I remember going through the temple the first time, and beyond the stuff we talked about in the episode about the initiatory and being naked under a cloth, because it was before the 2005 changes, I remember leaving and being like, there's nothing to this. There's nothing new. And we won't get into what the actual video is, but that's why when people go, you learn something new at the temple every time, I'm like, what do you learn? There's nothing. It's a video of the creation. But to go back to your point, and to kind of piggyback off Julia, the Book of Abraham scrolls were showed to everybody because they were real. The gold plates can't pass physical inspection. So yes, you could say, an apologist will say, the local reporter, the governor, a mayor, they don't have faith. But this is a physical event. This is the corner the church puts himself in by saying, these are plates on a table. I don't need faith to know that this, I still have it near me, that this is a Nerf dart. I don't need plates to see that I've got a cup here. So to then say that, well, Nemo can't look at this plate, this cup in person because he has no faith. It's an argument that is so stupid that you would never give it to anyone else. And so, I'm just being as blunt as I can here. This is an argument that the church is making because they know full well that when they show the cards are saying Joseph's made it up. So you could retreat to that position, but I'm saying the church would never give that space to someone else. If someone else, I'm just going to throw out hypothetically, Hiram Page came out and said, I've got revelation. The church isn't going to go, well, it's true because people believe it. They're going to say it's not true because it can't be, because that infringes on us being the one true church led by Joseph Smith. And so you're not going to give the same space to any other religion. You're engaging in special pleading. If those plates would pass physical inspection, Joseph Smith would have showed them to people just as he showed the Book of Abraham scrolls, and it would have grown the church, and it would have grown the church immensely to a point that it would have been the most important event in modern history. And the God of Mormonism, if he really wants everyone to come back to him, would have been like, Joseph, get those plates out in front of many skeptical people and influential people as you can, because I want my children to come back to me. He wouldn't go, dude, just show them to the Whitmers, show them to your family, and make sure that no one else can see them. It's
God's ways and not our ways, Michael.
And I get that the apologetic is God's ways are not our ways, but I'm going to say that the God of Mormonism sucks at growing his church, because the God of Mormonism made his prophet out to be a fraud in the Book of Abraham, didn't show these plates to anyone but people who already believed and who already were very gullible to worldviews, and also believed a nut job that claimed he had his own seer stone that was giving revelation so bad that it had to be deemed from the devil. I'm just saying, and I'm being blunt here, the God of the Mormon church is horrible at growing his church because he's doing all of these things in every way that tells the world that his prophet's making it up. And so I'm pushing back on what you're saying because I get what you're saying. I hear it all the time.
I can hear the God of Mormon saying to Mike, scoreboard, 17 million members and growing, most successful American founded church in the history of America, plus $250 billion, checkmate. Mike.
Well, I mean, if we're judging by money and we're judging by greed, then but I've been told that money and greed are not of God. So I mean, and what are the Seventh-day Adventists?
That was just by Jesus,
Well, what are the Seventh-day Adventists? Don't they have more? They've got 22 million. Wasn't that started in the U.S. and that was also started on a failed revelation, right?
You have 22 million.
They have 22 million. So
second.
So Seventh-day Adventists, which was formed basically on a failed revelation, right? They've got a bigger number. So does that mean that they're? I mean, like
the bandwagon effect.
This is the problem you get into.
I want to get everyone else in, but I just want to ask. Let's just say there's three options. Option one is that they really saw real plates. Okay, I'm assuming that no one here believes that. Option number two is that he showed them something, and there's going to be four options. Option one is that this all really happened. in some amalgam of what we've talked about, and that there are plates and there are angels, etc. Option 2 is that he showed them stuff, maybe fake plates, and created a genuine impression in them with physical artifacts that they were actually witnessing to something. A third is that he whipped them into some sort of spiritual testimony that where no actual physical stuff were ever seen. And then a fourth is that it was all made up and it was like a conspiracy that they were all in on to lie, or that sort of undue pressure was applied so that they would sign agreements to things that never really happened. I want to go around the horn. Julia, 1, 2, 3, or 4 for you.
So I don't think that there's an actual ancient set of gold plates. There's too many problems with that.
Not one.
So I think no. And I also think no to the last one, because these people went on to believe, like, they also, in their own testimonies, they don't say that they were coerced. They don't say that they were pressured. So I don't think that one is either. I think it could be very likely that Joseph Smith made a prop set of plates. And what was your other option?
So 2 is real artifacts. 3 is all spiritual.
Well, and then just like with the 3 witnesses, which seems all spiritual based on everything that we went over last time, that one could be very likely as well. So I don't know between the 2 whether it was all spiritual or there was a prop set of plates.
Okay, so you're saying 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Mike, what's your vote?
I'm with Julia. I think the conspiracy thing to me doesn't make sense because Joseph Smith runs them out of the church. If they were in a conspiracy, they would have turned on him. And then obviously there's no ancient plates. We've talked about how the fact that just doesn't work in any possible way. So
spiritual eyes, physical eyes. Spiritual hand.
Probably had a prop set plate. I think he probably had a prop set of plates, and I think he probably also did what we saw with the vision with Sidney Rigdon, where it's like, I see this, do you see this? And they're like, yeah, I see that. What do you see?
Okay, wait. If they're prop set of plates, they're seeing them with their eyes.
Or holding them under a cloth.
No, but they said there's no cloth. Like, they're seeing them, they're touching them, and they crinkle, and they're gold, and there's rings, and they're reading Egyptian characters.
The crinkle only comes from Emma, and that's from underneath the cloth.
Yeah, but they do say
right?
it's as thin as a sheet of parchment. Do they say that in one of them?
Parchment.
I have to go back.
Thicker than regular
Or
paper.
tin?
Make that.
Tin.
I don't think he did.
Tin.
I mean, I think
that's different than people crappy plates that don't have engravings, that are super rough. Like, what they're testifying to is seeing something that really looked like golden plates. It hefted around 30 pounds, right?
I think there's so much ambiguity in those statements that it's hard for me to say, like, oh yeah, they saw him on a table uncovered, because I also think when you read those statements and when you read what Martin Harris says, I don't think that statement is probably what happened. So I guess I'm kind of like what Julia said, you have a little of 2, a little of 3. You got a little bit of that. Joseph may have had a prop set of plate. And then, if you listen to Dan Vogel he did a podcast, or not, he did an episode on YouTube on the 3 and the 8 witnesses. And then I think it's on the 8 witnesses. I think he talks about the studies that have been done on like getting kind of inducing spiritual hallucinations, inducing that vision. Joseph Smith does it. I mean, we've seen it throughout the history of the church. And so I'm saying that maybe you have a prop set of plates, and maybe you have these people fast all day, and then you give them sacramental wine, and all of a sudden they're loosened up. They're already believers in magical worldview. So you can use that prop set to basically initiate more. But at the same time, it's that
4 and then 4, right?
Yeah, he would. But I also think when you have a signed statement that conflates,
I don't see how he manufactured plates that reflect what they're saying they saw.
No,
well, this is where
I don't think you have to.
Yeah, this is where you have language.
It's spiritual eyes, not physical eyes and hands.
So this is where you have language that spiritual eyes are what are needed to see what is truly upon the plates, because what is upon the plates is so sacred that it's hidden from the natural eyes of men, and that's why the plates appear blank, or whatever language you would like to use. And that's why he has to engage this spiritual element of it so that they see the plates for what they really are, not as blank silver plates, but as the gold plates, right? So that's I agree with Mike, surprisingly. No, I agree with Mike, a little bit of 2, a little bit of 3. That there is something there that they can physically get their hands on, but in the right conditions, set up by Joseph Smith to then believe.
It seems like 2 is impossible.
But
because he couldn't make up plates that would match those descriptions.
But like you said,
that are that heavy, that are as thick as parchment.
because the spiritual eyes do the rest of the lifting.
Then it's 3.
Well, it's
with
3
with the prop
with 2.
from 2.
Yeah. Because the statement is so vague, you don't really know. It's not like the statement's like, and I, John Whitmer, walked into the room, and upon a tree stump was uncovered plates that were directly engraven with the Book of Mormon, and Joseph Smith showed me the Urim and Thummim light up with letters that pop off the hat. I mean, it's very vague, so it's all speculative.
Those tin plates you've got, John, are quite dull, right? Say Joseph was using sheets of tin that were slightly thinner, and he'd hammered in some ways. They got some slight ripples to them, and he'd polished them up, right? Then he sat them in a room. Say they didn't go out to the grove, because we have a testimony that they went to his house, right? So they're in a house by flickering warm orange candlelight, reflecting
Depending on
off,
the time of day.
depending on the time of day, reflecting off reflective surfaces with ripples in them, and that is a recipe for someone to say, if they glue, the plates glowed with a heavenly glow, and they were, as fire or whatever, right? They're a golden color. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Add to that some sacramental wine, like Mike said, and some spiritual, some cognitive preloading from Joseph Smith for what they should expect to see, and you can manufacture an experience.
And
this is super random.
The Charles Anson visit was before this, right? It would have been before this, because that was early in the process, right? So the Whitmer family had the characters document, because the one that the church has today that they got, I believe they just bought that from the Church of Christ. I think that was part of that deal. That was, they believe, written by John Whitmer, right? John or Jacob, I think.
John, the characters,
which means which means that the Whitmer family would have been very familiar with the characters. So now, to Nemo's point, you've got this set of prop plates, you've got a dimly lit room, you've got candlelight, you have all of these people who are familiar with the characters document, who are familiar with what they believe the characters look like. And Joseph Smith can guide them through and be like, they know what to look for. They know what to visualize because they've looked at that document. And that's why I believe there's one account that talks about the engravings having like a black dye or something. And I think Dan Vogel points out that the characters document is written in, kind of written in that black thing, the black ink. And so all of a sudden you would start to think like, that's what I'm picturing. I'm picturing those character documents in black on the plates. I mean, that's why I think you can make a really good case that Joseph Smith could use a prop plate plus a visionary experience. There is Nemo just said, they're already preloaded with the characters document to what those plates would look like. I don't think it's that much of a stretch. These are the same people that are believing you can get revelations off a rock and a hat from Hiram Page and Joseph Smith. It's not that hard to believe that they would see it. It's also why he can't bring anyone else in the room.
Julia,
Nemo, you're muted.
Wait, did we all vote? Who didn't vote?
Did Nemo vote? Oh, he said a little bit of both.
Nemo voted. All three of us said 2 and 3.
Okay. All right. I think it's 3, but I don't know.
Which is just remind me what 3 is. That's just the visionary one.
Spiritualized.
There are no plates.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like and I think it was one of the, was it the Lucy Harris? Somebody had gathered witnesses, and one of them said that the box is filled with lead, sand, and then one of them said it was nothing, which I should have put those in there. Maybe I'll put it in the next time. But so like that's interesting as well. Like there was something, whether it's just a box, like because Hiram has the box made, the little window box or something like that, made for this purpose. So he could have put anything in there. So like as far as prop, that could mean a lot of other things besides something that looks like plates. Have
you guys all seen Kung Fu Panda?
Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking.
Is this where we've gone? No, but all right. So spoiler alert, Kung Fu Panda, there's this whole idea about having like this master scroll. And so Poe by Jack Black, who's awesome, he finally gets it and he opens it expecting it to have like the magical spells of the world. And he just sees his reflection. There is no magic. There's no, there are no noodles, right? And so you just wonder if these people are looking at blank plates, but Joseph Smith is telling them what they're seeing, and they're just going with it because they're from that worldview.
There's no secret ingredient.
There are no reformed Egyptian characters here, but you're looking at it and you're seeing it because Joseph's telling you that that's what's there.
I also wanted to point out something too. So I'm reading Grant Palmer's book, An Insider's View of Mormon Origins, and he lists the times that Joseph Smith is translating other supposedly ancient documents. And he talks about the Kinderhook plates, the Greek Psalter, and other things like that. And every time Joseph sees those, he's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this is. It's Reformed Egyptian. And this is similar to the golden plates. Whereas we know that the Kinderhook plates are a fraud. the Greek Psalter was something different. And so like Joseph doesn't even recognize the characters on his own plates as opposed to other ones that are frauds. So I just thought that was interesting too, that he, even though he spends all these months with the plates, he doesn't recognize.
Or he can claim that what he's seeing looks like the characters on the plates because no one's ever seen it and no one can prove that it doesn't look like that. So it's a way of him just co-opting these other ancient languages or this made-up Kinderhook scratchings into his worldview. He gets to draw it in because no one can prove that it isn't exactly like what he had.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. He's got a language that nobody can. It's unfalsifiable because it's what he created for the Book of Mormon, having reformed it. Like we talked about in the episode way back when. If Joseph Smith had said this is a plate, a set of plates written in Hebrew, which is what it would have been written in, right? If it was from the old world, well, then you don't need spectacles. You could go to a scholar who can read it. So Joseph Smith needs it to be a language that can't be cracked, and so everything else has to funnel through Joseph Smith's charisma, so that it can't be proven false. And that's why I guess I believe that there are people that's around Joseph Smith that he's choosing specifically because they are primed to believe that they're seeing these things that if you went to, like I said, a local reporter who would actually make a huge difference in growing the church, that local reporter is like, dude, these are like, there's nothing here. He's like, you're not looking through faith. It's like, well, no, I'm just looking. There's nothing here, which is why I said at the start, if the church wants this to be a purely physical event, it opens up a lot of really bad questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is just all a teaser for part 2 because we've got a lot more. Julia, what else do we have in this presentation?
So I want to talk about the other witnesses. So there's Lucy Mack Smith even says she saw the plates. You have Josiah Stoll. You have Mary Whitmer, David Whitmer's mother, who says she saw the plates. And so we're going to talk about those and then kind of summarize the inconsistencies through the 8 and 3 witnesses. Because at this point, I think there's 12 that say that it was a supernatural event. So anyway, we'll just summarize those things and then talk about these other witnesses. So, yeah.
All right. Well, Julia, this has been so fascinating. And Mike and Nemo, it's always great to have you. So thanks for doing it. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Please remember that you can check out the original LDS Discussions essays at ldsdiscussions.com, that all of these episodes are provided in order, either on Spotify in audio and video, or on Apple Podcasts in audio only, or on the YouTube, on the Mormon Stories Podcast YouTube channel as the LDS Discussions playlist. Again, we do try and be as neutral as possible, and we feel like watching them in succession is going to give you the best experience. We're going to be continuing this series over the coming year, hopefully. And we're just super excited to be doing this. If you value this content, we do pay Julia and Mike and Nemo for their participation. So if you value this content and you want to see it continue and you're not a monthly donor, please become a monthly donor to the podcast so that we can keep paying these brilliant people to create more amazing content. If you are, and you can go to mormonstories.org, click on the donate button to become a monthly donor. And if you are already a donor, thank you so much. You're making all this possible. Really quick, make sure and check out Nemo the Mormon YouTube channel. Subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to ours. And Julia can be found on Analyzing Mormonism, both on TikTok for as long as TikTok exists, and on Instagram. Am I forgetting anything? Anyone?
Mike's original stuff on ldsdiscussions.org. Is it?
Com. I think I meant.
.com. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Thanks, everyone. Come back for the next part on the 8 witnesses. Be kind to each other. Be good to each other. We'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. Take care.